Hey folks, and welcome to this week's episode of Double Feature Horror Show. This is rated 18, which is going to be of some significance later. This is our 18th show, after all. That's the smoothest segue I could come up with for this one. And we're just going to roll with it, but don't worry about that. What?
Nothing.
Haryan, I've got to sell the history of the British Board of Film Classification to people. I've got to get people believing this is riveting, you know? Like I've got to take what I can get.
Riveting it is.
That's the spirit. Well, I've sort of given the game away there, folks. We got a topic that is a continuation of something we did previously when we looked at the history of film classifications, going from 1912 to 1931 with the awesome rated H for horror. We're going to carry on with part 2 of that, and we're going to go all the way up to 1951 with this, which at least one of us is excited about, but I'm a special kind of person, I guess. It'll work. People will love it. And then we are going to cover Final Destination. Unfortunately, we are not joined by Oh-Wain tonight. He had to drop out, but hopefully we'll have him back again, because I thought he did a very good job on the Omen.
Apparently making money or something is what more important than discussing Final Destination.
Can you believe it? Yeah.
What a wuss.
I know. The worst.
This film is 21 years old, and he's not here for it. I'm saddened, frankly. but you know, where's your priorities? But anyway, let's not dawdle too long, because I should probably, as is customary, introduce you. Hi, that crime guy. How are you doing this week?
What up, my shillers? I'm a little blue, but I am over Sunday. So, yeah, bring it on. Roll on 2022.
It did not come home.
No, we say it's coming home, but we don't say when it's coming home. Therefore, we have an out. So, get wrecked.
I like that approach. Very much. Good. And, yeah, Haryan, how are you doing?
Yes, I'm good. I'm also over it. Not quite coming home yet. What up, my drillers as well? I also like that selfie that you have as your picture.
I mentioned that. Before.
Yeah, I figure I'm just going to embrace it at this point. If you didn't see last week's stream on the Omen from 1976, which you really should, it's a great stream and it is a wonderful film. We're somewhat derailed by, frankly, rebellious members of this stream pointing out that I happen to have a cameo in it. I've got a doppelganger in that film, so.
Well, it's not that you happen to have a cameo. It's you did have a cameo.
Yeah,
quite blatantly.
Yeah.
Can neither confirm or deny.
Just go back and look at one of Proper Horror Show's previous videos. Compare it to the image that you're seeing right before you, and tell me they are not the same person.
Look, if it stunned me if it shook me and I had to pause the film, it's worth bringing up. That's my criteria.
Okay, this is exactly the kind of stuff that we're in trouble for, gents. In fact, this is going to be a very special stream, because we're laying down the law. We've been naughty.
No.
We have been put on the naughty step.
What are you doing?
It's not acceptable.
We've been going too long, far too long, in our foolish quest to entice Mauler. We got too close to the sun. What can I say?
Staying up past bedtime, yeah. It's
exactly.
naughty.
So we are going to aim to keep this stream under 2.5 hours, and that may even happen. Maybe.
Oh. Let's hope.
Anyway, hey to everyone in chat, and I suppose everyone watching on catch up. You are all very welcome. I know we stream at weird times, so we can't always get everyone in, but especially glad that everyone is in chat. Did you all manage your horror homework this week? Had you seen Final Destination for the first time, or was this a rewatch for you? I'm very interested to know if you drop that in the chat.
Well, for me, it was very much a rewatch. And can I just ask, why do I have a nub for a right hand?
Oh, the kid's face is very small,
Right.
and he's in the stock photo I nicked. He's wiping his eye because he's crying.
Right.
But in the grand old tradition, I had to put your face there, and it's a bit horrifying, isn't it? It kind of looks like you've eaten your fingers.
I was going to say that.
Well.
Yeah, he's just munched on him.
Ugh.
Well, mummy doesn't feed me, so.
Oh no!
Man's got to eat.
Oh, Tidge, no! This does happen. This does happen.
Oh, it gave me nightmares. Oh, hated. Oh, I'm guessing you mean hated it as in like left you traumatized. Funny story. I'll just get it out of the way now. I went to see the second Final Destination with a couple of my mates at the cinema, and this was like the last showing of the evening. So by the time we'd left, we were on our way back to the bus stop, like on our way home, and obviously you'll know from the films, you know, you got to spot signs that, you know, death's upon you. Well, as I'm walking home, I look to my right and there's a phone box, and on the phone box someone stuck a sticker of death on there. I had never been so paranoid in all my life that I was about to die, either on the way to get the bus, on the bus, after the bus, die in my sleep, die on the way to school the next day. It freaked me. Freaked me. So yes, Tidge, traumatized. I can totally relate with that.
Nice. I love a bit of trauma on this stream. That's wonderful. That's absolutely wonderful. Well, I'm sure we're going to talk about Final Destination a heck of a lot in the second half, but I'm going to try and give us in about 20 minutes some more BBFC history. I know that's what everyone is waiting for.
I love that. BBFC. I'm sorry, carry on.
Yeah.
Get your mind out of the gutter, son.
That's an X-rated joke.
Damn you, internet. Okay, so when we left off last time, as you will remember, we had got to 1931. We had uncovered a bit of a scandal, a bit of a disagreement in the history of the British Board of Film Classification. These are the people who decide effectively what films you get to see. And not just by saying you've got to be this old to see this film, this old to see that film. Remember what they're also doing is they are cutting material out of films, or encouraging studios to cut material out of films so that it can fit a certain certificate. They are, interestingly, in this period, getting in before the films are even made. Now, in a sense, they're doing that because by getting the film ratings, studios are saying, okay, make this film. Let's try and make, I think Bambi, we're going to go for the U. You know, I don't think we're ready for an 18 rated Bambi yet, you know. So it's kind of informing how films are made, but they're influential in another way too, that I'll get onto in a bit. So we're in 1931. We have our H for horrific certificate to effectively tell people it's an adult film and it's got horror themes. It's not just, you know, come in if you're 16 or over. It's 16 or over, but be warned, this has some more challenging content in it. And one of the films that came out shortly after this, after having quite a lot of trouble getting through the BBFC, is, of all films, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs.
What, the Disney one?
Yeah.
It was terrifying when you watch it when you're 6, to be fair. I can kind of see why, yeah.
Haryan's first horror movie confirmed.
They're effective. You're a kid, that stuff messes you up. I was teased for many after watching The Little Mermaid and that shark going for Ariel getting stuck in the anchor.
Yeah.
Apparently I screamed very loudly. when I watched it in the cinema.
Brilliant.
And like this stuff in the book, so yeah, they had a lot of trouble getting Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs through. In 1938, they managed to get it out. And something that's really important is sort of the situation in which people were watching these films, because they watched films quite differently back in the day. They were really big on matinees, children's matinees. It's a lot more like the theatre, right?
Okay.
So these would be very cheap showings to try and get children in en masse. And there was huge take up. Basically, the peak of this was in the late 40s. I was trying to find some video of this, of someone explaining it. Now, this might go very wrong, but I really wanted to try and show you guys this because I thought it was quite hilarious. Right. This could go so wrong. Shall we give it a try?
Let's.
All right. Can you see this lad? Can you see Chris?
I can see Chris.
All right.
This isn't going to help your understanding of the matter at all, by the way. I just found it really funny.
Right.
Marshall Lane Palace and a really rough house called the Strand in Strand Road. And when it was well off on the Commodore on Stanley Road, on the Commodore, nobody had any money there, they had few had money. They charged you two small jam jars to get in. Or one big jam jar and a small one.
I love this guy.
Jam jars.
He's amazing. Jam jars. I could let it go on, but I watched it a couple of times to try and work out what Chris was saying about the children's matinees. I didn't have a lot of luck, but I kind of loved hearing him. It's somewhat off topic.
My man needs subtitles, but
I know.
Yeah.
I want to know does he mean literal jam jars?
I think I can't tell, but I just love the idea of paying in jam jars. Okay, so the whole thing that's coming up is children are going to matinees, and this gets to be something of a concern because people are worried about what the children are seeing, right? Like parents are just letting their kids go off on their own, getting in, paying a couple of jam jars to watch a film. And so people started to worry, what are the children seeing? I mean, is this or is this not a timeless theme? Think of the children. What are the children seeing? Right?
Very Helen Lovejoy,
Yeah. I'm torn on this issue. I'm very torn on it. But I think it's quite interesting that is still going on. So you've also got things like drug usage getting on the screen. You have in the late 30s Charlie Chaplin having a bit of nose powder and acting a bit funny in modern times. Bit saucy. In 1947 in Brighton Rock, there's a bit more violence than anyone expected, and although this was very popular, this started concern. And so in 1948, I think that's you get a new secretary of the BBFC. This is Arthur Watkins, who was formerly in the Home Office.
Okay.
And so, yeah, civil servant. That should set the tone a bit.
Okay, so he's already Virgin, not Chad.
Absolutely.
Gotcha.
He's not a Chad like T.P. O'Connor.
Right.
Guys, go back and watch the first bit. T.P. O'Connor's total Chad, who's like, we are stamping out degeneracy, and you're going to love Queen, love country. He's an absolute boss. I love this guy. He set out, well, I won't go over it again, but you just watch the first history lesson on the BBFC. I think you'll enjoy it.
I don't think we'll be getting any of that, Right Honourable Fez, with the last guy. Maybe this guy, I'm guessing.
So we're going to see some interesting things with Arthur Watkins getting on. So first, we got much more concern again over moral impact and the effect on children in particular. We also have the BBFC getting really active in advising on scripts pre-production. This is that thing I said about them starting to impact films before they're even made. right? So studios are just saying, look, I want to make this film. Here's the script. Are we going to be able to get this by you? And they're saying, you probably can't have that. We're going to have a problem with this. We're going to have a problem with that, etc., etc. So they're already adjusting the films at this point and describing this neutrally. You may be in favor, you may be against. There are no wins and losses. There are only trade-offs, as we know. And in 1948, with these changes going on, there's also a concern about the film industry and the BBFC being a little bit too cozy, getting a little bit too chummy with each other.
Okay.
Can you imagine such a thing? The industry that rates the films and is paid by film studios, maybe being a little too close to film studios.
I can't imagine any sort of cartel forming here. I don't know what you mean.
No, me neither.
That is crazy talk.
Everything is wholesome. Everything is honest. There is no such thing as corruption. No wrong can come of institutional.
I am going to contact the police if this slander continues, so be careful.
Yes.
Oh, I've got some lovely salty slander on this that I'm going to show you in a second.
Allegedly.
Right, where's my phone?
So this, I've got a little bit on here that I'm having on screen from the book From Silent Screen to Multi-Screen, A History of Cinema Exhibition in Britain from 1896 by Stuart Hanson, which you can see there's a little bit in here about that concern they had about the effect on children. So you get the forming of, conscious of the content of many films shown at clubs, that is the children's matinees that I told you about, in particular films imported from Hollywood, such as westerns and adventures. J. Arthur Rank, that's the guy of the famous Rank Corporation, established the Children's Entertainment Film Division in 1944, blah, blah, blah. This is getting looked over by Mary Field, who was formerly a teacher, interestingly enough, and the Youth Advisory Council made up of representatives from the BBC, the education sector, and the church. Moral. They were concerned that the films would not only be entertaining, but would also set a high moral tone and encourage good behaviour.
Okay.
And as part of that, they commissioned a report in 1948. So there's all going down in 1948, okay? And this report is the report of the Departmental Committee on Children and the Cinema by Kenneth Weir. And this is where you get a little bit of salt. Oh, this is on the BFI's website. So obviously the BFI, British Film Institute, and the BBFC, good buddies. They have this report on the Weir report, which is what the publication I just referenced is shortened to. Comes out 2 years later in 1950. And I love this. The clear implication of the Weir report, even though it was largely contradicted by the reality, was that the County Councils Association felt that the BBFC was too heavily linked to the film industry and therefore did not necessarily have the public's moral interests at heart when reaching its decisions.
No.
Oh.
Wow. I can't. This has never happened before, ever. You know, you've got a big centralized body dictating what you can and can't do, and it gets lobbied. When does that happen?
Wow. I mean, this is 1950. You know, it was a very different time. So yes, it's mafia finds mafia not guilty. I'm afraid, which I just find very interesting. Now, so they do ultimately decide that actually there is no negative effect on children and teenagers, and when they write this, they are talking about sort of 16-year-olds as children. They're not really differentiating much from what I can tell, and they're effectively saying, yeah, these slightly spicier films than we used to see, then they're not actually having any degenerate effect on the kids. So this is sort of rebutting one of the earliest Doom-did Columbines. As for whether you go with that or not, that is very much for your own personal judgment, I suppose. But I personally, I can't make my mind up on it, frankly. Actually, where are you guys on that? Maybe we'll do a separate discussion of that.
Yeah,
because I honestly don't know.
I feel like it needs to be looked into a bit more, a bit more of a deep dive.
I am very torn on it.
Yeah,
but the bit that we're really interested in, because I've got to set up the issues for why this even happens, is that they feel the rating situation where we have that's everyone is allowed in. If you are over 16, you're good to go. It's suitable for all adults and children accompanied by an adult. And H for horrific. They're saying that's not good enough. That is not doing the job. And so they recommend more certificates.
God, just let's make it more complicated. That'll fix things.
Well, going off the ratings we have now, it worked.
Yeah. So they proposed advisory A. So, as you can say, it's suitable for all, but it's more adult in tone. Advisory U, suitable for all. So basically unchanged from what they had at the time. C, a film that is specifically for children. And X. Now, you notice in this, there is still a bit of a moral tone in it.
Yeah.
Which is slightly reduced from what we saw earlier in the first iteration, where it was explicitly moral. It was explicitly from one standpoint, for good or ill. This is a watered down version of that, but it's still there.
Yeah.
But what they did end up, now we wouldn't actually get these advisories for quite a while.
Okay.
But one thing we did get was that X certificate. It comes about in 1951.
Right.
When I can get it on screen. Sorry, guys, I have a lot of tabs.
A very fancy looking X certificate on the left.
Fez, they thought it wasn't sufficiently explanatory. They thought it needed to be much starker. We need to show people it's serious business. This is X-rated, so the X certificate comes in and boots out the H for horrific, which probably would be the name of this channel if I had learned about it earlier. Now, what do you think the impact of introducing a new certificate that basically says, you guys, this is serious business. This is some extreme naughty content. What do you think the result of that was?
Well, I think the result is bloody hell. I've got to go and watch that.
Yeah. As well, there's a whole Father Ted episode on that when the priests are describing what's on in the film, and it's like, oh, is there any nudity? Yes, much nudity. It's all right.
Chat, can we have a down with this sort of thing in the chat, please?
Careful now.
Yeah. Let's get a down with this sort of thing going on. You are absolutely right, lads. You're nailing it.
Of course we are. It's the Streisand effect almost, isn't it? It's like, oh no, don't look at that. Oh no, you really don't want to look at this. I tell you, I'll watch it for you so that you can stay protected. No. Let me see for myself.
Yeah, I mean, there was a reason other than they were good games that I really wanted to play GTA when I was under 18.
Exactly.
Yes, has absolutely nailed it.
Zone.
Yes.
Maximum pearl clutching from prudes and maximum desire from the young and bold. Hell yes.
Yeah. So there's something I picked up in the first first part of this BBFC history thing is that like the official narrative is that the BBFC was way too stuck in its ways and way too conservative, and they had to be dragged kicking and screaming forward. What I actually see is actually the county councils are keep telling them, you're way too cozy, you're way too lax, you're letting way too. We're really worried about all this stuff you're passing. Like, what are you doing? It's completely counter to the narrative, So, anyway, 1951, the year after the recommendations of the Weir report in 1950, which, by the way, is absolutely blooming impossible to find online. I can get quotations from it. I spent a good hour searching for the darn thing. I cannot get it in its entirety. 1 year after, we get the X certificate with a big campaign. There you go. X certificate is a film that is serious business. And you almost immediately get our beloved British Hammer horror production of the Quatermass Experiment with this massive X right there to really signify, hey guys, look, we got X rated. We're one of the first films to get an X rating. Yay! Come and see what an X-rated film looks like. And yes, it worked. I mean, it also helped that it was written by Nigel Neal, who is a bit of a legend in the horror and sci-fi scene. But
fair enough.
Yes, it did not perhaps work as intended, and people actually flocked to it. So
down with this sort of thing.
Bruh. I've said a notification pop up. Sorry, just on a completely different tangent. Ted Bundy's trending on Twitter. So I said unpopular opinion, he's not all that good looking. And someone just replied, handsome AF. Like, no.
Who's Ted Bundy?
Oh.
I'm joking.
He produced Destiny's Child. Did one of their albums.
Oh, did he? Oh, nice. Why is he trending? Did he murder someone?
Allegedly. Apparently.
Allegedly.
Maybe 1, 2, or 30 old people, perhaps.
Had it? Jeez.
Anyway, BBFC, sorry about that.
That's okay.
Caught me off guard, that.
That's okay. I'm trying to find the last thing I wanted to show you all, but I'm struggling to find it. It's quite frustrating. Okay, I've got it. But effectively, yes, we've got to the 1951. We've got people cashing in, and that gives us a lovely new rating, which ends up looking like this.
Oh, the Wicker Man.
Yeah. I just thought you might like to see what came flashing up before your film.
Nice.
Yeah, I found like Alien as well. I know, it does a bit, doesn't it? You hear X-rated and you actually think of... Now, I don't know, they have separate... I know, quick quiz. Guys, do you know what adult material gets as a certificate in the UK?
XXX?
It does not. It does not get a triple X. It has a special film certificate.
21. P.
No. It is an R18.
R18.
Random bit of knowledge. Adult material gets an R18 rating with limitations on where it can be shown.
Can confirm. Don't think I've seen an R. Have you got any examples of R18 films?
I don't watch that sort of thing. That crap guy. What do you take me for?
Damn it!
This is a family stream.
Backdoor Sluts 2. That'll
be one. No, I don't know, and I think, to be honest, it's quite troubled because you've had, ever since the early 2000s, you had films getting 18 rated releases that actually have fully shown real sex in them. So obvious examples are Vincent Gallo's Brown Bunny. Oh gosh, there was one based around people going to concerts and banging. I can't remember its name. The Short Bus is an obvious one that was released a little bit later. And those didn't get R18, they just got 18. It's
Right.
Yeah, NC-17 is like it. I know in America they desperately try and avoid the NC-17 because, frankly, a lot of cinemas just will not show your film if it's NC-17. So they all try and get that sweet, sweet R rating, which is weird because like an R rating fits somewhere between a 15 and an 18 here.
Yeah.
And like PG-13 can kind of come out as a very weak 15. Or a quite strong 12A.
I say 12A is a fairly recent certification, isn't it?
It is. Do you know one of the first films to get a 12A rating?
Was it Terminator 3?
Well done, Fez. That's the one. That is it.
Never even heard of it.
I actually took my brother to go see Terminator 3. And that was the first 12A movie I went to see.
Nice.
He was only like, I want to say 8 or 9 at the time. Might not even be that old, but he really wanted to see it. So
I think Star Wars Episode 3 was a 12A, and I think I saw that when I was under 12.
It was in at one of the first ones is Spider-Man with Tobey Maguire.
Oh,
Oh, really?
By the way, guys, return to tradition. Tobey Maguire is your best Spider-Man.
But that 12A certification is only for cinemas, though, isn't it? Because when it goes to like DVD, video, whatever, it just reverts back to 12.
Oh,
There's no point because the whole point of it is that you're essentially it's like PG, but with a little bit more, well, violence, I suppose. But if you can, or edgy material,
Correct.
that apparently an 11-year-old can't handle. All right. Or might not be able to handle unless they've got someone older than the age of 12 holding their hand.
I always thought that was a little weird. Like, just is the adult accompanying you to an R-rated movie gonna just suddenly slap their hand over your eyes or something?
Yeah.
Oh, I've never seen weird. Anyway, guys, we're getting too into this.
It's unacceptable.
Naughty step, folks. We're going to switch it
give
up.
me a spanking.
Haryan, it's a family stream. This is the most family-friendly stream about decapitations and disembowelings that is on a Tuesday night in Britain.
You got to answer the question, though. Oh dear.
Moving very swiftly on, folks. Let's talk. I just say, like, I hope you enjoyed this weird little section of British film classification history. It can't just be me that enjoys this stuff.
It's riveting.
Oh, leave me hanging there, guys. Terrible. Let's talk about the main feature tonight. Let's talk about Final Destination.
Oh,
so
let's do it.
That Cram Guy, you saw it already.
Let's go.
Harriet.
Yes.
Were you aware of Final Destination? Had you seen it before?
I hadn't seen the whole film before, but I just remember it was a big thing at school where people would basically only talk about this film because of the deaths in it. So I've seen some of the clips of some of the deaths. I think there are a couple in this one that I hadn't seen before because they've done about 20 Final Destinations. So all I know of Final Destination is the death scenes, and they were the best bits of the film. I will say. Do you want my general opinion of it, or?
I am all about your general opinion. Like, I'm interested that you sort of heard of it and it's famous for the deaths, which I think is good. And because let's face it, this is the deaths in this are very unusual, and they're kind of the draw, aren't they? Yeah.
Well, this way, whenever there's like a ridiculous death in another film, I've always described it as a Final Destination death. And actually watching the whole film, I think that's more of an insult than anything else.
Oh, not again. Hey, Charlie Chieftain, how you doing? I just seen Charlie Chieftain in the chat.
I can't decide if this film is like it's average or below. It was Yeah.
Okay, all right. I'm going to be interested to hear from you, as I always am. You're a rogue, Haryan. I never know what you're going to say.
Mm.
You always come in with a rebel take, but I'm going to ask you both first. Can you guess why I've done Final Destination after the Omen, and why I tried to get Oh-Wain for both?
I'm gonna have a stab in the dark and say themes around mortality.
Oh, almost.
Oh,
I have no idea. I can't even guess.
Think
'Cause I
about.
can't.
Okay.
I can't think of anything Christian related in this film, really.
No, it's not Christian related. It's how people die. It's how people are killed.
Well, it's an extra kind of. It's a mystical force, really, that's forcing people to die.
Charlie Chieftain nails it.
Yeah, that's what I'm going for.
Yeah.
You know, it's the devil or Satan in the Omen manipulating things to make deaths in. Well, there was only really one death in the Omen, or two actually. And yeah, in this film, it's all of them. But I'd say this one's a bit more obvious about it than the Omen.
It is.
Why I prefer the Omen's deaths.
Now,
Four deaths.
Yeah.
In the Omen.
So you do actually get like a physical fight at the end of the Omen, obviously with Mrs. Baylock. But as you say, for most of it, people are being killed by these sort of deaths that are being set up for them. Now, they aren't as elaborate as these sort of Rube Goldberg device deaths.
God, it was so stupid.
I'd call you're grand. Okay, I mean, I'd call it Rube Goldberg. Other people might say it's like Mousetrap.
Well, Mousetrap is a Rube Goldberg machine. No, I mean, I'm thinking of the deaths in Final Destination. They're just ridiculous.
Oh,
well, most of them are.
Okay. I thought it would be interesting to bring you guys films where you don't really have a physical antagonist. And to sort of see how does that work in terms of delivering the scares. That's what I was really interested in.
Yeah. It was quite. I mean, what got me about Final Destination and just the franchise is it is that unseen enemy, if you will. There is nothing that you can really do if you obviously if you don't spot the signs, and it takes there only ever tends to be one or two key characters that can sort of correctly sort of see when something's up. Having a non-physical presence, it can work. I think it can work. I mean, I felt like
it did in the Omen.
Yeah, it did in the it did in the Omen. In parts in Final Destination, I think it works quite well. We'll get into sort of like obviously the deaths later on and sort of my thoughts around them. But yeah, I mean, I think you can easily have a film with a sort of a spiritual antagonist that essentially is just doing its job, correcting its mistakes, and you're screwed basically. I like that.
I'd say it's such a strong premise, but in a way it works against a lot of what we're trained for.
Yeah, because what you're trained for is like the spooky physical being, whether it be a slasher, whether it be someone like Hellraiser, like Pinhead, or like Freddy, Jason, Chucky. There's always a physical being that you're up against that you can, to a degree, fight back against. This you can't. It is very sort of cat and mouse in a way, and depending on the circumstances, it can work. Fez says he said it didn't work. I think it worked in some parts, but in others, you know, it was a bit. I'd almost say in some of the deaths, in this film particularly, comical. I'd say it was almost like the scare was sort of secondary, and it was more of a sort of the shock value. But the shock sometimes came across a bit comical.
I mean, this is what got me with the film, because everyone talks about kind of the deaths and how ridiculous they are. I thought Final Destination was a comedy, but it took itself so seriously. I'm like, what?
I failed again. I thought you'd love it.
I didn't hate it.
Okay.
That's right. I mean, I can't objectively, I can't decide if it's like kind of average or bad on kind of that level. I mean,
Okay.
I like the death scenes just because, but they made me laugh. I wasn't horrified in this at all, really. Which what I mean, yeah.
Okay, it does take itself very seriously. Absolutely,
Yeah.
It's very intense. It's very intense. I feel like I'm duty bound to point out the obvious. Other than that, it's a post-Scream film, so it's sort of it's trying to shake it up a bit. It's trying not to be a slasher film. It's coming from a very different place. The writer and director is coming from the world of the X-Files. There are sort of disputed accounts of whether or not this was originally a script for an X-Files episode.
Yes, it was. Yes.
Yeah, I see people arguing it both ways, so I'm not sure on that. But James Wong definitely worked on the X-Files. And I also have to point out something I thought you might enjoy, that Crime Guy, is seeing Stan in this film.
Yes. Dear
Did
Stan.
you think of it straight away?
Yeah, absolutely. Devon Sawyer, yeah. Absolutely. In fact, when he first come on, the first thing I said to my wife as I was sort of sitting there, I was just like, "Dear Slim, I wrote you, but you still ain't calling." She's like, "Shut up."
Left my silent pager and my home phone at the bottom. Oh, well, it had to be
sent
said.
you 2 letters back in autumn. You must not have got them. There probably was a problem with the post office or something. It can be like that, you know, especially in the days where you didn't have internet and emails and stuff.
And another thing, okay, so less facetiously, let's bring up one of the highlights of the film. I want to know, did you guys catch this?
Yes.
And this was also a point of controversy. The Final Destination went in the news recently. I'm not sure if you saw it.
No.
Yeah, it was censored on Netflix.
Was it?
Can you believe it? Yeah.
Why?
Because of the image in the top left.
Oh yeah. Did you? It's really interesting because that scene in the top left, and my wife actually noted this. She noticed that he did that sort of like that hanging motion while he's having the flashback, or what? Not flashback, but while he's having the premonition. But then when he awakes from it and then looks at him and he does the motion, but he doesn't do the wrapping around motion. He just does this sort of like the throat cut, like.
Yeah.
Well, is it because it's like lynching or what?
No. They're very Netflix, which is very happy to show us cuties and 11-year-olds twerking.
Well, obviously, yeah.
But a joking reference to suicide is a bit too spicy for Netflix, so they took this out, which is really unfortunate because this is an example of foreshadowing the deaths, and almost, well, actually, as far as I can tell, except for Carter, all the deaths are foreshadowed, and there's obviously I should specify here, it was just this little scene, this little motion that Todd makes that was cut out, which is annoying because it's foreshadowing, which is lovely because the theme of this is that they've got this curse hanging over them, that it's predestined. So you see Todd imitates hanging himself. What is her darn name? Teddy?
Oh, who cares? She wasn't a character.
She's a whammy. Yeah, she didn't have much to do. She's there with a bus, And in the same scene as that, you've got Sean William Scott's. By the way, any American Pie flashbacks for this lad?
Oh, mate, whatever happened
Never
to the
seen
dude?
it.
Decent. I think he can do a decent act occasionally.
Yeah.
But he's got this. I tried to grab a screenshot of it, but I couldn't. But just before this shot, he's trying to go back in, and he sort of sticks his head through the door, and the door's closed on him, and he pulls it out, and I'm like, oh, there's another losing your head thing. I should really have specified very loudly and clearly for anyone joining. You're very welcome. We're going to talk about Final Destination, and we are going to be spoiling it. We're going full in detail. We can spoil the whole darn film. This is a point of announcing it as horror homework. I'm usually a bit better at warning everyone that we're going to be talking about spoilers. So yeah, I couldn't get a decent screen cap of him sticking his head between the doors and almost getting caught. But you do have him watching the plane go, and the plane just drawing over his face. In the exact line that gets decapitated. And in the bottom right, that's not actually foreshadowing, but I thought the cop's face was absolutely hilarious. and I just wanted to screen cap it because she cracked me up. When I was trying to get all the other stills from this bit, I just saw her face and I thought it was so good.
Yeah. Also, I like was it John Denver as well?
Yes, the recurring use of John Denver. If they'd have done Country Roads, it would probably be a bit memeier. Harry, you'd have definitely thought it was a comedy then.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, true.
It's also there is other foreshadowing which I'll just pop on screen for a second with the teacher. Now it's not as clear because she obviously has quite a lot going on in her life at the end of it.
Yes,
you see her there, with the knife behind her.
Again, my wife picked this one out as well. When she goes, I said to her, I was like, you should get on this stream.
I was going to say, can we get your wife on stream?
She's too shy, bless her. But yeah, I was like, you need to do this because she was like, yeah, look, see the knife. As she bent down, she's like, I was like, yes, I do actually, as a matter of fact.
Okay, so I suppose at this point, even though everyone should have watched the film and everyone is probably aware of it, should we do a recap?
Yeah, I was going to say, Haryan,
you are our recap master.
All right. So, a bunch of school kids, senior year, are going on a trip to Paris, France. But just before the plane takes off, what's the main guy's name? Alex.
Damn it,
Alex.
Alex has.
Stan.
I'm pretty sure
do that.
Alex. But he kind of has a flash forward of what's the plane's going to explode basically. So he panics at first when he has the dream, and then he finds that something in his dream actually happens. He pulls one of the things that keeps the tray on the seat in front of you up, pulls that straight off, and that happens in his dream. So he's like, oh my god, the plane's going to explode. Obviously people think he's mental, so he gets off the plane with his brother or his friend?
His friend.
He gets off the plane with his friend and a big bully boy and his girlfriend, because the guy's a jock and beats up kids. So he gets kicked off the plane as well. One random girl gets off as well, which she has reasoning for that later. I call it reasoning. And then also the teachers have to get off, and then the air marshals are like, right, none of you are getting back on, but one of the teachers is like, no, there's like a whole school there, one of us at least has to get back on. So she's like, oh, you get back on, French, and they're going to Paris. So the other teacher gets back on, and then as the plane goes, the plane explodes, as you can see on screen. So, and then everyone panics because they realize that Alex's future sight was right. So then the FBI get involved because someone realizing a plane's going to explode a few minutes before it does. Yeah, that's pretty dodgy. So having done that, 39 days later. Why it's 39, I'm not sure, but I really hated the line where it's like, oh, it's been 39 days since we lost 39 people. It's like, oh God, why? But
Symbolism.
yeah, I just thought it was weird. It's like in the new Star Wars where they're like, oh, this festival we've happened to come upon happens every 46 years. And the only reason they chose that was because it was 46 years after New Hope came out. But but anyway. So they're having a memorial service, and kind of how have people dealt with this after a month of the incident? It's like, you know, the girl who randomly went off, she's like, oh, I wouldn't be alive without you, gives the guy a rose. Others are just freaked out by him and like, don't talk to me. Like, you they basically blame him for a plane blowing up. Yeah, and I can't remember what the bully says, but yeah,
in short, they've escaped this thanks to Alex freaking out and getting them off. They've escaped death, and then that sort of new lease on life doesn't last all that long.
No, so his friend has an accident in the bathroom, we'll say, and we're not talking about the toilet. So I guess we'll talk about the first death. So before we
do that, shall we talk about the premonition on the plane? Because I think that's kind of pretty important for selling it.
Oh yeah, actually.
You know, it's a very serious tone. Did you?
Yeah, well, there's things before that happen. So, like for example, so the night before. So the night before, when Alex is packing, you know, his parents, you know, wished him, you know, good luck, and you know, his dad turns around and says, you know, this will be the first, you know, this will be a first in a long list of, you know, of your life and whatnot. It's almost like famous last words. And then when he's asleep, when it hits 1 a.m., the clock flickers and it goes to 180, which is the flight number that they're getting on. And also the opening credits have a lot of references, and Desiccated Limbs exactly right. Do you know what? There's one, the way that the film sort of almost ends, not this film, but in terms of the franchise, I thought was genius. But we will park that.
We'll park that. We're not.
Yeah.
We will hopefully return to other films in the series. But
but yeah, the referencing. So yeah, going back to the premonition, it's hard to sort of pick up where it starts exactly, because he's sitting in the back, and a couple of girls come up and they're like, oh, you know, can you swap seats? And then that's when you get the top left image from the last slide that you had, where he's like, no, don't move. But he ends up moving. And so like his mate's all hacked off of him, like, oh mate, come on, we were going to get some serious clunge there, almost like Jay from The Inbetweeners.
It's the worst word for it.
Yeah, I know. But it's so accurate. And then obviously he takes off the he goes to, sorry, he doesn't actually put the tray down. The tray falls down, so he picks it, so he puts it back up, and then that's when it falls off. And then as they're taking off, obviously they have a bit of turbulence. All seems a bit like, oh gosh, is it, isn't it? But then it's all fine. And then it goes all rocky, and then it turns into like this massive, like, just air crash investigation reconstruction. The masks come down, the side of the plane opens, gets ripped out, and people start flying out the sides. The engine goes off and it burns through the cabin. I think it sort of ends with Alex basically being burned alive, like his face melting, almost
it's
like
very Terminator 2, isn't it?
Yeah. That stroke was it Indiana Jones? Was it when the face melts? It was very sort of reminiscent of those two. And then he wakes up and he's like in his massive cold sweat, and he wakes up and there are the two girls asking to swap seats. There's his best friend doing the old throat slitting thing. He's like, what is going on? So he doesn't necessarily move, but he just launches over to the seat, and then it all starts going Pete Tong. He's like, oh my god, the things come off, and he's like,
yeah,
get me off, the plane's gonna crash. It all goes mental. They're trying to, this is again, my wife picked something up. He was desperate to get off the plane, all right, but then when when the jock gets up and punches Alex, I think it is, obviously that's when they get ejected off the plane. But Alex, even though he wants to get off the plane, he even says to them, you don't have to tell me twice. they're the air security, they're struggling to get him off. He's actually resisting them, and it's like, dude, you want to get off the plane? Why are you doing that? But then
I did not notice.
Yeah, it was really, I thought that was a good spot. And but so he gets obviously booted off the plane. The jock and his girlfriend get off. Clear, just a random passenger within the school. No real connections with anybody. She's a bit of a loner she's a bit of a loner. She gets off, and Alex's friend, top left guy, we'll call him Jay from In Betweeners. His brother turns around to him and says, "Oh, go and check on him, make sure he's all right." And of course, he does what his big brother says. And then, then you get to this scene here. You get the teachers, you get the female teacher saying, like, "Go back on the plane, you know French, yada yada." And then,
they pull trigger. I want to talk about some of the ways that the premonition on the flight was made not only scary, but really disturbing. And I hope you're going to go along with this. So, Haryan, you might say this didn't work for you at all. I'll be interested. But like the building of tension where he's quite reluctant to move, him looking down and seeing like damage on the plane, it's building up the mood. He's looking down, he sees like this massive drop between the plane and the walkway that he's on, the entryway. All these things like picking up vulnerabilities. And then he gets on the plane and there's a very disabled person with their carer in the front seat. And this is automatically making you feel like vulnerable. Like this person is very sympathetic. Like they are very severely disabled, so much so that they clearly need an assistant carer with them at all times. And the fact that you're very aware this guy is on the plane, when it starts getting shaken up, he really freaks out, and it's like that's one of those for me that's like, and please no one take this the wrong way, it's like when animals are hurt. You've got animals and children. It's someone who's very defenseless, but it's quite creative because it is a disabled adult. It's like the idea of this person freaking out, being really upset. It's like,
I mean, I just got the feeling he was afraid of flying. That's all I got from all of that up to that point. And then he had the premonition, and then he panicked. And I'm like, right, so he's just afraid of flying. And then the whole film tries to play it off like, well, the whole film does play off like it. Well, it was. He doesn't have a problem with flying, it turns out. It's just he had. He's never explained why he can like foresee these things at all. He just does. It's like, okay, that's fine, whatever. But it's just not made clear at all at that point. So I wasn't really. I mean, all this stuff. I mean, all that stuff is really normal for planes. Like it's like watching. If it wasn't a horror film, it would just be someone. It reminded me of the Simpsons episode when Marge was afraid of flying. That's all that whole scene reminded me of.
Right.
I like, because he looked at the side of the plane, it had a bit of damage on it. It's like, well, that's just scuff. That paint comes off in the air, fine. And then he looks down, it's like a really normal car going underneath it. And I'm like, what's this film? Well, he's afraid of flying, I get it. But then it wasn't. He was afraid that something was going to happen. I'm like, why else? And then it all turns out later, you can just foresee some people dying sometimes. Okay. And I didn't get why.
I think, well, it's not really explained, is it? But I think...
No, which isn't necessarily an issue.
No, but I think if you're to sort of like... I mean, he was quite apprehensive about flying anyway, wasn't he? I mean, he was quite worried about it. So, I mean, maybe, again, I'm just sort of spitballing here, but maybe the heightened stress that he was under maybe caused him to have that premonition, because if you notice throughout the rest of the film, the senses aren't as strong. Now you could argue that he's under a lot more stress given the fact that what he's experienced, but it just seemed to be a bit of an overblow, a bit of an overload moment. But
there's frankly no good reason why he does. We just kind of have to go along with it.
Yeah,
it is quite random.
And they do, and they just completely go after the bus one. He doesn't actually have one after that.
No.
But then he's like, I can like, no, because he's like, I could see the belt was going to rip or something. I'm like, what do you mean?
Also, welcome back, Empire 2.0. Glad to see you made it this
Yeah.
week. Going to be
Wee.
interesting what you think about this one.
Yeah,
So
and-
what
oh,
I'm
God,
trying to
is it-
say is, like,
Yeah, go on.
is this fear of the flight, the fear of flying, the nervousness around the plane, like, did that work for you, or do you think maybe we're all a bit too used to flying that the idea of trying to make air travel scary just doesn't work as well?
Again, my wife hates flying.
Yeah.
So you know, this works on a level for her, definitely.
Mm.
Me, not so much. But the thought of dying in a plane crash isn't exactly an appealing one, shall we say? And I've seen enough air
Safest
crash
form of
investigation.
transport.
It is. But you know, we have a very bad habit of watching a lot of air crash investigation before we fly. Flown in the past. So.
Just do it.
Why would
after.
you do that?
See
Why
what you
not?
survived.
Yeah.
Well, another problem is that airplane was made in the 60s, 70s, or whatever. You can't make was it 80s? Is it that late?
I think it was the 80s.
Yeah.
It's probably the 80s, but you just trying to make any sort of airplane disaster. It's seen even after that. It's just impossible to take seriously, just because of that film.
Darn it.
This film tried its best.
Mind you, I watched Thunderbirds, and I think their pilot show was a terrorist planted a bomb on the new supersonic jet, and one of the wheels they couldn't lower one of the wheels, and it was like this tense build up to try and land the plane, and the Thunderbirds were coming out. Look up Thunderbird 6 on YouTube. The full movie's there. I used to have it. Honestly, tension like you've never felt before.
Yeah, Thunderbirds is really good for.
It's incredible. It's incredible, and it's actually where the laughing puppet meme it originated from.
That one.
An airship.
Yeah.
So something else I want to point out is like an interesting thing in this timing of it, because again, maybe this is going to work a heck of a lot better if you are sort of quite, or if you're already kind of scared of flying. But Final Destination is also a bit of a victim of timing. In one way, it was really fortunate because this came out in 2000. My goodness, can you imagine trying to do this movie the next year, particularly after September?
Well, there was a film. There was a film that got shelved for a while, wasn't it? In 2001. Oh, I'm trying to think what the name of it was, but it had John Travolta in it, and it was what was it called?
Oh, is it the one with Hugh Jackman as well?
Yes.
Chat, help us out. What's it called? What's it called, guys? Come on, you remember it? John Travolta, Halle Berry,
Hugh Jackman.
Hugh. No. Oh, you're disgraceful. Get out, you Zoomer.
But yeah, it was involving a terrorist plot, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah, and they had to shelve that for a bit because it literally was going to come out about like on the week. Funnily enough, a little bit of history. If you're a football fan, you remember the England-Germany game where we beat them 5-1, 10 days before 9/11.
Swordfish,
that's it. Yes.
Oh, Jim McIntosh just got there as well.
Jim swoops in for the win. Thank you very much, mate. Yes.
You take the win on that, Jim. You got there just as I did. The other thing we need to point out in terms of fortuitous timing, actually, because if this had come out a year later, it would be in big trouble. One of the FBI agents who is very interested in someone noticing a plane is going to blow up before it blows up is Agent Shrek.
Yes. Yes.
That is a little awkward, isn't it now?
Yeah, I laughed at that, but I'm like, well, they didn't have a chance when Shrek came out, so well let it go.
Yes. Of course, I mean, all the chat is remembering Swordfish now. Well,
there we go.
It's nothing but Swordfish.
So, all right. So not Grease then.
Oh no, this
Grease.
is
Yes, because I remember Halle Berry's famous performance in Grease.
Based in Swordfish build. But let's take a pause for a moment because we talked about the foreshadowing. Why is the agent called Agent Shrek? Open question for you.
Oh.
Because they all got Shrek'd. No idea.
Wait. The names in this film are a loving tribute to horror icons.
Yes, I know that Sean William Scott's character, his surname's Hitchcock, which is obviously
Billy Hitchcock.
Yeah.
You have a Murnau after
Right.
F.W. Murnau, director of Nosferatu. You also and Agent Schreck is from Max Schreck, also the eponymous star of. I shouldn't say eponymous because the vampire's name is not Nosferatu, but he plays the vampire in Nosferatu. I'm going to look up some of the other names actually, just to be. Come on, man! It's just because I'm streaming that I just can't remember. But yes, almost all the characters have a name that is a reference way back to it. In fact, I believe it's Alex Browning is the main character, and Browning is obviously Todd Browning, who we know from Freaks, from the 1931 Dracula.
Oh, Freaks! What a film!
So this is just a cute little pedigree, sort of wink to the big horror fans who will notice these things.
Yeah.
Hitchcock is maybe a little too obvious. Because you obviously pick up on that, but
he was the one I got, put it that way.
Yeah, even I got that one.
It was quite handy because I sort of picked up. Actually, I do remember the Max Schreck bit because I watched this on Prime, and so I could get the old trivia bit running alongside it as well, and that was one thing that did come up. Nice.
So we sort of talked about how tension was built on the way up to the premonition, and then that I think there's that wonderful delivery they've got out. You think he's freaked out, and then they deliver that explosion, and in a nice bit of attention to detail. Yes, Kent. Thank you. That's one of the ones I forgot. One of the characters is called Cheney.
Yeah,
nicely done. So, that nice little attention to detail when the plane blows up, it's just in the background, it's nice and distant behind the glass, and you just see it go, and you've got 1 or 2 seconds before the sound hits. I love that detail.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was so good.
I don't think the explosion's big enough to do that, but
it probably isn't, to be honest.
I'll let it go. Well, it is Premonition as well, like, a big hole rips into the side of the plane, and it does the thing where the cabin's pressurized and it sucks everyone out. But at that altitude, you wouldn't have the pressure difference being enough to do that. But then it turned out it was a dream, and I'm like, okay, I'll let that go then. But then it turned out it was like, oh no, it was a real premonition. It's like, wait.
Don't quibble physics. You can't. If you quibble physics, this film will not work for you at all. You've got to be very generous with your understanding of physics, man.
Well, no, because they were pretty good with the physics when it came to the electricity in the car later.
No, they were wrong.
Were they? I thought
they were wrong. No, they were wrong, and I will explain why. When Clear is in the car that was being attacked by the electrical wires, Alex said that the car was grounded by the tires. This is incorrect. As the rubber tires are actually an insulator, hence they do not complete the circuit. For example, ground the car. Also, the car should act as a partial Faraday cage, which means that all of the charge would be on the outside surface of the object, in this case the car, and that the person inside would be safe.
Yes, well, that's what I was going for. So that's why he's like, don't get out.
Yeah.
Keep your dirty physics out of my horror film, guys.
Well they were right that she should have stayed in it, but they were wrong as the reason as to why she should stay in it.
Okay. So we've gone through this. This is all just set. This has delivered the big scare, and then it's lots of. I think the film is quite generous in how much time it takes to deal with the sort of grief that people are experiencing, the sorrow. And this, I think, is one of those things that sort of, if you're in, this is respectful, this is making the film deeper, this is making you care about it a bit more. It's quite nice, I think, to actually spend a lot of time acknowledging that this is actually tragic, that 237 people died on that crash. Might have been 247. It was, pretty awful. I liked that. I liked that a lot. Carter, of course, at that funeral service that they have, is perhaps a bit overwritten. He's perma-aggressive.
Yeah.
It's sort of... I can't say, even though I really like Kerr Smith, and obviously I was a fan of him from Dawson's Creek. He's playing, I think, very much against the character that he played in Dawson's Creek, where he was sort of an early gay character.
Right.
In this one, he's trying very hard to be a sort of like very hard man jock.
Uber Chad, yeah.
There's a sort of fun moment with that about how Chad he is later, which we'll get to.
I'm gonna live forever. Oh,
Yeah,
mate,
that was an interesting. That was a bold statement to go for. I would say. Let's see how that. Let's see how that plays out.
Plays out. That's a bold move, Cotton.
So it's set up. It's taken time on the grief that I really like, but those happy times can't last forever, because after this, we get our first Final Destination death, the signature method of the series. You are not getting jumped by a killer in a mask. You are not getting chased by a ravenous Lovecraftian beastie through the woods. You are in your bathroom, paying a heck of a lot of attention to your sort of nasal hygiene, probably more than I've ever seen in a film. Like this guy really wanted that nasal grooming right.
Well,
meanwhile, the
hang
trap
on.
is being set up around you.
Yeah, and he's also like, it's a weird razor he picks up as well, but he's perfectly clean shaven and then starts trying to shave himself, nips himself, and then just stops. And I'm like, what was that about?
That did annoy me.
What's he doing? I thought he'd like slip and slit his throat or something, but nah, it's stupider than that.
Oh, okay. So
now this one I actually thought was quite harsh in terms of the manner. And then I felt like it just went a bit downhill from after that in terms of like the in terms of like the scariness of them, if you know what I mean. Again, so, like I mean, I watched this film Friday, and like, I've seen it so many times. Like, I mean, it doesn't have the same impact as it did when I first watched it, but I can remember this first one in particular disturbing me quite a bit when I first watched it, and that one has stuck with me.
Yeah, I think it's the most plausible death.
It's just,
but it's still ridiculous.
I mean, yeah, it's ridiculous, but you know, it for me the manner in which he dies is, you know, that's the kick. I mean, his was probably the most prolonged. Well, I say his and Miss Luton's deaths were probably the most prolonged, but in contrast, when you compare the two of them, I did find Miss Luton's death to be a lot more comical in the sense than I mean, that was it Todd's, I think it was. Yeah, Todd.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get onto that later, but yeah, hers was just ridiculous.
Yeah.
Well, so in this one, I think I find that response really interesting, because I felt the sort of creeping dread being set up. I could see those elements being set up. I'd heard the John Denver, and I was like, okay, this. But I do think there's maybe a decision that they wanted to make this death absolutely savage. I mean, I would get a screen cap up of it, but I thought it's maybe a bit too grim, so I didn't necessarily want to get it up. It's a bit too nasty,
right?
But I thought there were touches in this that really made it hit harder than you might have expected it to, like the prolonged nature of him slipping around, being choked, the shots of the wire around Todd's throat sort of tightening multiple times. Yeah. And the thing that squicked me out so much and still got a squeal when we watched it.
I know what
when his eyes go bloodshot, when his eye. Man, that was horrible.
For me, it's when his toes curl. When obviously the eyes going bloodshot was quite harsh, but it's just those moments just before his life slips away, and you just see his toes curl, like you feel it.
Yeah, I think they did a really good job of getting the panic going on.
Yeah,
and like showing him suffering sort of really helped to land it. I find like, you are not watching this in a wrong way, Harry, and I just find it very interesting that you have a really different response. Like,
Well,
I think like your response here is how everyone is meant to see it in the later films. And people in the chat, you've seen the sequels. I think, you're probably meant to see them as quite ridiculous in the later ones.
Yeah,
this one is very straightforward.
I just want to point something, because Fez says in the chat the hanging was unnecessary. Slipping and cracking the skull would have been more realistic and would have been a more gentle lead into the death calling its due. I get that, and to a degree, I can understand that and almost agree. My takeaway from the manners of the death, it was almost as if death was punishing these people for cheating his design. You're supposed to follow the plan. You haven't followed the plan. So instead of having a maybe a painful but a quick death at the hands of a big old plane exploding, you're now going to suffer.
I mean, the whole problem underlying all this is that Death isn't really a character. He's just kind of talked about at one point, and then the rest of the time they're like just talking about his design, and that's it. All you're doing is kind of guessing at what Death's intentions are, which for a horror film, that kind of can work well, but you can't make any conclusions. Unfortunately.
I'll agree with him that the fluid retracting and flowing back to source at the end, that was a bit dumb, especially considering the fact that it was ruled as a suicide. I mean, what they could have done, but what they could have done is if they kept the fluid there, then it could have looked like an accidental death, and they could have ruled it as that.
Well, I'm fine with it being a suicide. I think a better way would have. I think a better way to do it would have just been don't show the liquid going back in.
Yes.
Just end the scene, and then later on in the morticians, it's like, oh, there was no liquid on the floor or anything. We can't say he slipped.
Yeah, but his feet were wet.
But that's the thing that the audience know that the rest of them don't.
Ultimately, it doesn't really make a difference in terms of the plot, whether it's accidental or suicide. So, but I think maybe suicide's meant to have it. How can I say? It's meant to be more emotional, maybe.
Well, because then the parents come out and blame him.
Yeah,
because which also doesn't survivor's guilt because of you.
Doesn't
like
really
you would have died anyway. Well, it was just stupid because the guy's like, "Oh, it's your fault he died." It's like bloody hell! Like he would have died on the plane.
Yeah, it's like, dude, I saved him. If anything, you got a few extra days with your boy. I mean,
yeah.
Now, while we're talking about that, this is one of the key issues: is how Final Destination shows death, and they struggled over this. Because they were like, oh, how much do we show? And
Bloodworth.
They go in with the shadow in the background.
Yeah.
And I think they back away from that.
Yeah, they do.
Increasingly in the series, they don't do it. And I think that's good. I think the shadow's a bad idea.
Yeah, I think
it doesn't work for me.
I'm completely on board with that. Because again, I remember the shadow being in Todd's death, distinctly remember that, but then I couldn't remember if it was in any of the other ones, because again, you go through the sequels, you're absolutely right, they completely move they more or less move away from the idea of it being a shadowy creature in the background manipulating. It just happens to be like a chain of events. It goes from being like a spiritual thing to obviously like it's supernatural, and I'm doing air quotes, but it's like a chain of events. Like if you watch Tom and Jerry and you see those long, drawn out, complicated traps that Tom lays out for Jerry, leading up to the point where boom, he captures Jerry. It's like that, but you don't need that little shadowy figure pushing the ball to get the trap moving.
You don't. I think, Tidge, absolutely. Yeah. It is.
Yeah.
It is the best thing to just see things go into place, to know someone's in danger. And I think the real appeal of this movie, that they saw why this would work so well, is you are really engaged in working out, okay, how are all these pieces that are being laid out before me, how are they going to lead to the death? What is the mechanism in this mousetrap? But of course, and like this, I think becomes really explicit in the later films, but the most characteristic example of that in this one is, of course, Mrs. Luton, who we will get to. But we're talking about representations of death, and I think we got to touch on that subject, and that's where we get to your boy William Bloodworth, played by
What up, blood?
About this dude.
Who is it, Haryan?
I don't know. Lawrence Fishburne.
Jesus Christ!
Oh my god!
You
just done a racism.
Well, yeah. Well, I made that joke in the first episode we did as well. Every black actor is Lawrence Fishburne.
Disavow.
That is, of course, our favourite Candyman himself, Tony Todd, absolute legend, a guy who became very much attached to the series, in sort of a weird way. Like he's here in Bloodworth in this, the second, and I believe the fifth one, and he has a very small role in the others. So, like in the third one, which is centered around a roller coaster, he is the voice of the roller coaster. And he just has a voiceover role in the fourth as well, which is kind of weird because you've got Tony Todd in to sort of attach to the franchises. Not really any other character is being carried over here, but you're not bringing his character back. You're just getting Tony Todd's voice in. It's a weird decision in the third and the fourth. Very weird. But William Bloodworth himself in the first, second, and fifth, he's an interesting guy. He's mysterious. He's ambiguous. He knows more than he should.
Absolutely. I think he's quite... They're quite small roles that he plays, but I feel like they're quite powerful scenes.
Absolutely.
Because he does give off that, like, you're absolutely right, he gives off that impression that he knows way more than he should. But then again, that's probably because he's surrounded himself with death, and so seems to have a better understanding of it than your Stans or your Hitchcocks.
Yeah, they have confirmed he is not death himself.
Yeah,
but he's got some weird knowledge. Like he knows Alex's name when he shouldn't. He's got a lot more information than he should have. But also, effectively, in storytelling terms, this guy is your wizard.
Yeah,
he's your elderly mentor. He's your Dumbledore. He's your guy who's meant to get you the important information and set you on the path and then die.
But there is absolutely no rhyme or reason to it at all.
Yeah. Well, in story terms, it's the idea that effectively, the torch passes and the young hero has to claim his destiny. In this one, they subvert that because he doesn't give a damn about them. He's kind of messing with them.
Yeah.
And Fez, he's absolutely hamming it up. He's having a great time. His description of death may be not particularly family friendly, but
do it.
Oh, I cannot recreate Tony Todd, but when he's talking about death and says, "You do not want to fuck with that,"
yes,
iconic horror. I love it.
I didn't like this scene.
What?
I didn't like this scene.
Did you not?
Okay.
This is not necessarily a problem. Haryan, surely your criticism is limited only to the fact that they broke in through the roof for no damn reason.
Well, one, that. Two, they go in and, as you say, he just knows everything. As I said before, there's no rhyme or reason to it. I'm just like, why is he acting really weird? And I'm like, all right, maybe he's some, otherworldly being or something. I don't know. Maybe he's got talks directly to death. Who knows? Nothing. He just starts. Oh, and then there's the bit where the cadaver just randomly spasms. They get that detail wrong. He'd be well beyond rigor mortis, which is when it happens. So it's like, oh, it's the chemicals that did that. It's like, oh yeah, whatever. And then he's just like, oh, death does this, that, and the other. And I'm like, oh, cool. How do you know all this? Oh, I don't know. They just go to the next scene after it. I'm like, okay. Then he doesn't come back. I'm like,
Isn't that lovely? Like he's just this ambiguous, menacing cameo that he's
Yeah, I
in there
love
to
that.
mess with them, and sort of he sets them on their path whilst also basically laughing at them and saying you're going to die.
He was literally the only interesting character in the film, and I know nothing about him. Awful.
We're getting Haryan get out and eject Haryan.
Fine, eject me. It's not a good scene.
It's a good scene. I love the fact that he pops in and pops out.
It could be made better. There needs to be some reasoning behind it, because as far as I'm aware, all right, you go and he's a mortician. Okay. It's like, okay, oh, he's acting really weird. Okay, he's not telling them to leave. They're not asking like the questions I'd ask. It's like, and he just starts talking in riddles. I'm like, okay, he's a really weird dude. Why is he a mortician then?
Because he's a really weird dude.
That's not good enough.
Well, you have to have some sort of mental sturdiness at least to be able to.
I'm not saying you can't. He's a Reaper. How do you know that?
Because there's just some amazing fan theories. Well, I'm hearing, Haryan, is just you saying, he didn't come back, but I wish there was more Tony Todd in this film.
Basically,
we all want more Tony Todd in our films.
Yeah, I didn't like this scene at all. I'm afraid I liked Tony Todd. That was it. He was the most interesting character. He was in it for 5 minutes, and none of his scene made sense. Yeah, I know morticians are weird, but morticians don't have this in-depth knowledge about how death has a design.
It's why I love having you on, Haryan. It's
explaining
brilliant.
it right.
Yeah, Haryan.
You always go rogue.
Haryan, you have to realise is that we're just a mouse that a cat has by the tail. Every single move we make, from the mundane to the monumental, the red light that we stop at or run, the people that we have sex with or want with us, the airplanes that we ride or walk out of, it's all part of death's sadistic design, leading to the grave.
Absolutely. What made him say any of that? It was really weird.
No, in death, there are no accidents, no coincidences, no mishaps, and no escapes.
Yeah, I got the idea that in this universe, like, he's basically telling you that no death is an accident. It's like, it's all design. It's like, okay, how does he know any of this? Anything. It's all just, you all just have to infer all these fan theories, and it's like, I'm sorry, I'm not going to do the writer's job for him.
All right, Mauler.
Shocking.
So this whole scene was right. It was literally like what's it called? J.J. Abrams was like, "Oh, here's a mystery box," but then it doesn't go anywhere. It's just
okay. I have to disagree. The mystery. Wait, hang. I want to disagree, and I need to just think if I do. I think the mystery box is something that's actually a goal versus like, this is just a fun detail that doesn't. I don't feel there's really any cheating in this. You could say it's
I wouldn't say there's cheating.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. You could maybe say it's cheating if he's like confirming their idea, like, oh yeah, death has a design. You already cheated it. Maybe you can cheat again. But I don't. I think they still sort of work it out. But he is pushing them on the way. It's more like, I think a mystery box is like, how does Maz Kanata have that lightsaber?
Well, yeah,
that she never bloody explains. But the key thing is, someone has got the lightsaber that they need, and there's no explanation why this really significant event occurred. It's just sort of, have the thing we need you to have, and don't ask about it.
But that's kind of my thing. He basically lets them know that death has a design, and that they can cheat the design, and maybe they can do it again. It completely sets up the rest of their plans for the film, and to me, that is a Maz Kanata having the lightsaber for no reason.
But I don't know if it helps them all that much. But I think
it does, because then he gets obsessed about like who got killed first in the plane explosion, which it's a plane explosion. Everyone dies within the same second. So why the hell would it make a difference if they like die a month later? Like,
is it helping them, or is he enjoying the idea that they'll be effectively the mice to Death's cat?
I mean, his intentions behind the whole thing doesn't really matter. My point is that it moved the plot along to have them all obsessed with this idea of the order they die in, which, as I say as well, it's like, why does Death one care about the Order? Well, that's not explained, but fine, it helps the movie go. But then if everyone's going to die at the same time in a plane crash, and it is effectively the same time in a plane explosion,
But it's
why?
not.
Like, well, it basically. I mean, it's what there was a pipeline that explodes. I
Yeah,
don't know. Like explosions happen in an instant, so
They don't happen in an instant.
if it's going along a pipe,
There is time. Time does
Li-
take. There
literal
is. There is,
milliseconds.
yes, but that's still a span of time. And I tell you what, if you're as autistic as Death, it's going to count.
Please
Yeah,
be
but then-
patient, Haryan.
Yes.
Yeah, but then okay, so it's a month. It's a month between the first death, and then it's what, like, not even death. I think it's literally the next day the bus one happens, and then it's all within like kind of 2 days where the next few deaths happen, and then it waits 6 months. I don't get the whole point in like why like only the Order matters, but it's like different people die between then as well. Like the death that I've designed here.
Deaths happen some fun.
It's
That's
like
it.
yeah, but I'm getting the idea that no one's died in that 6 months because Death has a plan for everyone and they have to die in a certain order. So if he's waited a whole month for the first one, to me that says, well, why is it only people on the plane where it matters? Why doesn't it matter with anyone else? It's dumb.
Haryan.
This film is stupid.
How can you do this to me, Haryan?
This is why it should have been a comedy. The plot is just riddled with holes.
Happily, I know this scene you'll have nothing to complain about.
Oh yeah, no, nothing at all. Oh god, that's not even. I don't even think that's the worst one.
No, I am going to give you a fair few things. I had notes that I would compare about. I'm not bothered by the very arbitrary time difference between the deaths.
Sure, yeah.
No, I'm not fussed by that.
I was
Yeah,
very.
that's fine.
I did get bothered that Alex is not. He works out the thing, but he makes really stupid choices. So like. Acting is like, what can I do to be like super suspicious to the FBI? And I also got annoyed that the FBI were effectively useless in this film.
Yeah, they were.
They just didn't shoot him when he's going away on a canoe. It's like, oh, we'll go round.
Yeah, I know. Just shoot the boat at the very least.
And it's
then
like
just fish him out.
Yeah, and then you've got Claire, and she's like, "Oh, why did you get off the plane?" Oh, because I felt what you felt, so I got off. And I'm like, "Oh, shut up!" And then later she's like, "No, I think he committed suicide. I don't believe you anymore." It's like, what the what? Why?
Yeah, that's a little arbitrary. I mean, look at the bright side. We did not see Claire and Alex become a romance plot. They shot a scene
right
where it was a lot more romantic, but.
That was one thing that bugged me, because that must have been an editing issue then, because later on in the film when because there's no romantic thing established in that point, but when he's unconscious on the floor, I think after he gets electrocuted, she's like, baby, and I'm like, where did that come from?
Yeah, that drove me a bit nuts.
Yeah.
She calls him baby earlier as well. At the scene where Billy dies, and it's like, but it sounds like she's calling him Billy by accident and not saying baby. And we rewound that 4 times to be certain. But we've got our quibbles. Alex is not a particularly compelling protagonist, unfortunately.
No, I just can't help but see
like an idiot. Yeah. But we get to this scene, and this is where I think we get a vision of where Final Destination is going to go.
Hang on.
Also, something we really should have mentioned, not just Claire embodying that, but we should also probably mention that, as it was very standard at the time, there was a lot of Dawson's casting. Like those high schoolers look pretty.
So are we about? So are we about to talk about the teacher's death?
We are, because I think this is effectively the showcase of where the series would go, for better or worse.
Well, before we get into that, like, what about the bus death? I thought that was a really weird. I just, after the bus death happened, I don't understand why they had the girlfriend in the film. She is literally there for no reason, and her death is like kind of the least.
She's there
How
to
do you put
die.
it?
She's
Yeah,
she-
basically.
yeah,
it's
she's there to
stupid.
make the pattern,
I
right?
disagree.
Todd could have been an accident, and then you have her, and then you have Miss Luton. That's your pattern. That's your 3 to be sure something's going on.
No, she's there to be referenced in multiple scary movie films and Mean Girls.
Yeah. She's just a hot. Yeah, she's literally just a hot, annoying girl, and then she gets hit by a bus, and it's like,
Just
that
like
could have
in
been
Mean
an
Girls.
accident. Yeah, I'm just. Well, I was thinking like Final Destination's known for its like really elaborate deaths and things, and this one it's like she gets hit by a bus and turned into a red mist.
This for me is like So this for me is
Yeah.
like the prototype. So this is the beta before the release.
Yeah.
You see a more clear pattern emerge in sort of like I'd probably say the second, probably from the second film onwards.
Definitely.
That's when they get into their stride in terms of the style that they'll follow with. And yeah, like what Prop Horrorshow says, it's in this particular death scene is probably the closest that they get to it in this film compared to the other films. I mean, yeah, like for example, Hitchcock's death is very sort of sudden. It's not, it's not a what would become a stereotypical Final Destination death. But yeah, so when a lot of people think of Final FD deaths, they're probably thinking of the latter films, sort of like the second films onwards, because that's when it starts to go really over the top.
Yeah. All I can think is that they looked at the feedback and they saw the scores and they just saw everyone. They tried lots of things and they do vary it in every single film. Some deaths are very quick, but I'm guessing they just saw the audience response and people generally enjoyed the Luton death the most. And so that's what they sort of structured the series around, I'm guessing.
Quite possibly, yeah. I mean, I found this one the most comical.
Okay,
but it's
yeah.
I mean, just the build up, the lead of events. Even when Alex, comes in and finds her, it's just for me. It's just you could put Benny Hill over this particular scene, and it would work.
I mean, yeah, he comes in like horrified. I think I'd enter this house being like, how the hell did you manage to do all this? There's a fire going off in the corner. You're stabbed. A chair has fallen on you to stab it in further. You've got blood coming out your neck from a microwave. What the hell happened?
No, that was the PC screen when it exploded.
Oh, PC screen. Yeah. How did that even explode?
It's like in terms of how your evening's going, you're not having the best one, are you?
Yeah, this is what I mean. I'll say in my summary what I'd recommend with this film, but God, this death was just I was out of my mind on it. And then Alex does everything wrong. He steps in the blood, leaves a boot print. He picks the knife up. And he's like, "Oh God!"
He pulls it out of her as well.
Yeah, which is
like that's the worst thing.
You're only supposed to do that when you're going to dress it. Which why would he know that? Fair enough, but oh God. And then it's like that, but then he runs out and the whole house explodes.
And Hitchcock's there as well. Billy's there. He sees him running out the house. There's a witness. It's like everything's just set up for. God, I'm sounding like I'm really slating it. Like I say, I like this scene. I found it the most comical scene, but. There you
Literally,
go.
this was all I was thinking. It's like, how has everything gone wrong? And then the house explodes. And then in a later scene, it's like, oh yeah, the FBI found a load of evidence. It's like, what? You don't find much evidence in an explosion. It's like, oh, the blood caramelized. It's like, I don't think that's how it works. I don't think so. But even so, all right. There's just everything about this death. I'm like.
There are some silly things. I'm absolutely giving you that. I really enjoyed seeing the pieces come together, and I thought, even if there is some absolute BS, right? The screen exploding was, that's not going to happen.
Not how PCs monitors were. Yeah,
no, but
fine.
I liked the Okay, I'm talking myself out of it. I liked the ingeniousness of the cup breaking and spilling vodka. due to the heat difference,
Yes.
I did have to laugh at the sort of very forced reason that she chucked the hot water out, which was,
Yeah.
What was it? It was the
she
school's insignia, wasn't it?
It was the school's insignia, and she chucked it. It could have been anything else, you know. It could have been maybe, I don't know, a picture of the Eiffel Tower. It could have been maybe a photo she had with her teacher buddy who died. Anything a bit more personal than just like the school mug.
Well, I think I mean to me it worked because of the overwhelming because of the overwhelming guilt that she had, and it was established beforehand that she was leaving because she just couldn't bear to be in the school anymore. I mean, I think it's the jock who turns around to Alex and says like, well, you know, well done, you know, Miss Luton, the best teacher's going now because she thinks you're a freak, or whatever. She tells him, go away, you scare the hell out of me. You know, she doesn't want to be around or anywhere near anything associated with that school. So it makes sense that when she sees the mug and she sees the insignia that she would naturally freak out, because of course it's going to give her a flashback to that day with the class and what happened. So it does make sense, as would an Eiffel Tower or a picture of Frenchie.
I think a school would work more than the Eiffel Tower.
Yeah. Let's also point out she keeps her vodka in the freezer like a pro. A+ tip, people. If you're making martinis, you want that vodka as cold as possible. So you keep the glass in the freezer, you keep the vodka in the freezer. Don't worry, it will not freeze. It will become very viscous. And it will enhance your martini experience. This public school teacher knows how to drink.
Well, she's a public school teacher.
I saw some. No, I'm not going to talk about that. So we, I saw some footage from inside a classroom, some antics, and I was like, literally, a kid snatched the teacher's wig off and then did a victory dance. So like, oh man, oh dear. Yeah, you'd want the vodka after that. That was rough stuff. But anyway, yeah, we're really having to suspend disbelief, but I love the visual, like the trail of vodka getting up. It's you have to indulge it. None of this would actually work, but I love the Rube Goldberg device that we get here for the first time.
I mean, you can make, but you can have a Rube Goldberg machine that makes sense. It's just,
they get better at it. They get a lot better at it.
Yeah. So. This one was just all over the place. It's the bit where she's like, I can't remember what she's getting the tea towel for. I think it's to like put pressure on her neck, but she's like, oh, tea towel, and then it kind of pans over to the knives. I'm like, oh Jesus Christ, really? We're going this far? Like, does she need another stab? And
did you not love that? Like the absolute savagery of that being dropped on her?
Well, this is the thing. I would have enjoyed it if it was a comedy, but it took itself really seriously, and then it just had these completely ridiculous ways to die, and I'm just like, just don't take yourself so seriously, and I'd enjoy it more. But the fact it took itself so seriously, it's like, oh, death looms over. It's got a design. It's like, act as a comedy, or at least like be a little more lighthearted than you're trying to be. That's what I'd say in terms of the tone.
That's cool. There's a lot of unintentional comedy.
That's the thing. I think a lot of it is unintentional. Yeah. It does seem to be the kind of film that tries to take itself incredibly seriously, but in a way it backfires. But at the same time, I think this is a lesson that's learned in the future films. Again, you know, this was the test run. This was this was very much the test run for the for what would become the series of these films.
This is important. Yeah, Fez. I mean, I go with Patoki most of the time. That's my go-to if I want something really nice. I still find that works really well with good freezing. You know, I think that benefits from it. But anyway,
Empire says, remember it's 21 years old. Yes. And in fact, one of the things we said, one of the things I said soon after watching the film again was coming back to it after such a long time, it felt quite dated, you know, in terms of, you know, a lot of the style and the fashion and, you know, the tone, the music. It was, you know, it felt very much in its era. Films like Scream don't really give me that vibe, if you know what I mean. But this one really made me feel like I'm in the year 2000.
Yeah, I can go with that. I'd say maybe you'd agree. One part of that is that the characters can be very broadly sketched. Like Alex is a bit of a template. His main character trait is to be as suspicious as possible to the authorities before he becomes Ted Kaczynski. And then, but especially I would say Billy, Busgirl, and darn it, Carter. They are very broadly drawn. Like Billy is just basically an idiot for comedic effect, and Carter is just angry the whole time. I kind of read Carter as gay. Did anyone else get that?
The one with the girlfriend.
I thought he was closeted, and that's why he was super aggressive.
You reckon Terry was a beard then?
Yeah, totally. Name's Terry.
She was called Terry?
Yeah.
Why?
Why not?
Was she a man?
I knew a girl called
Like
Terry.
Terry Hatcher, you know.
Yeah, Terry Hatcher.
Terry's a girl's name? I've never... Terry sounds like a builder's name.
It's like Terry with an I in it. But although I think hers was a Y, but I'm just looking at the character. I don't want to say where is she? Yeah, no, hers ended in a Y. But yeah, no, Terry's like one of them. It's a gender it's like a neutral name, isn't it?
In America, it is.
Yeah,
I've never known a girl called Terry. There you go.
Yeah,
I know a girl called Terry. Obviously, PH said Terry Hatcher, who fit,
totally fit. Best Lois Lane.
Yeah,
but you go anyway. Like I don't know, I just got that vibe. Like he's perma angry. I just feel he's too pent up, and then you see him in Paris, and he's just kind of chilled out. It's like he's accepted himself at that point.
No, I don't think he was gay.
he did feel very third wheel there in that end scene. I will say.
Yeah, I don't know why.
Which is very awkward.
Well, he was there for the film basically. I think if this was a real life, none of this would happen in real life. But I think after events like that, he wouldn't go with them to Paris.
To be fair, I think he was only there to give the impression that Alex was dead, because obviously you see him and Claire getting on the plane, and he's like, "Oh, by the way, I'm here as well." It's like,
well,
okay,
and then
oh my god, she's fine. Yeah,
and then obviously it skips Alex, and then he gets instantly killed. Which we'll move on to my problem with that when we get to it.
I have a problem with that bit as well.
That's fine. Good. So I also have a problem with that bit. And I'm probably going to be nerdy about it. So we probably don't have the same complaint. But
I beg to differ. The fact that you just said nerdy, I think we might have the same one, but we'll see. We'll see.
All right. So this introduces a problem in the film. Is that they don't know how to handle the FBI. They really struggle to know what to do with them, because effectively, logically, they suspect Alex of murder for really quite good reasons. You know, he's left a bloody knife at the scene with his handprints on it. He's left his caramelized footprint in blood, and Billy Hitchcock has seen him running away. So they then kind of this tension that he has to stay away and avoid being tracked by the FBI, which is not done well at all. You lead to this weird scenario where Clea arranges to meet Carter and Billy after Miss Luton's death, and she says the FBI we've got to go to Alex. The FBI are following me, so that's why you can't just go straight to him. It's like, if the FBI are watching you, you're just going to lead them to him.
Yeah.
And
if they're watching him, like, basically the short version is like the FBI plot makes no sense whatsoever. Like,
yeah, the FBI are beyond incompetent.
I do want to quickly just touch upon why Alex is under the is under the spotlight as well.
Go for it.
So why is he a suspect? Well, obviously there is the fact that he had the premonition about the plane crashing, but then there's then there is the fact that he keeps popping up at these specific places. So when it comes to Todd, why did he go to Todd's house? Well, he was in his bedroom and he was doing research on the plane crash, and then he decides to whip out a porn mag and try and get himself in the mood.
He only read the articles.
Yeah. But then he obviously, I think was it an owl gets in these in his bedroom.
Oh yeah.
And then obviously the porn book gets thrown into the fan, and then it obviously rips off a piece of the page. It says Todd. So he's like, right, get down there. So that's how he knows. Miss Luton, he goes there because he's walking along the street, isn't he? And then those embers, those embers give him the sense that she's in danger. So he goes there, and then obviously, idiot leaves a wealth of evidence, there. So by that point, he's already turned up at two. Well, it's already established that he has been present in two deaths, as well as the fact that he predicted actually saying that the FBI pretty much ruled him out of any wrongdoing at that point. They say
suspicious the whole time,
but they had ruled so they had ruled him out of being involved with the plane coming down. But their attention then turns to the fact that he keeps turning up at these places where these people are dying, that he is acting strange, that people have seen him there. So that's kind of why he's under the radar. It's not so much because of the plane crash anymore. It's just because of the fact that he keeps turning up at these bloody places.
No, you're right. It's an awkward subplot that I think is just meant to throw tension in, but doesn't really go anywhere, and just kind of creates a load of problems.
They remind me of the FBI agents in Matilda.
I don't even remember them.
They're a bit bungling. Don't you remember them?
We got some more vodka recommendations. I'm liking these. I need to save these, Mergoot. They sound good. Thank you. Have you tried Witoki? This is not a vodka stream. We will
just get the cheapest one and get drunk. That's all vodka's good for.
One of the FBI agents in Matilda's Pee Wee Herman.
What?
Did you not know that?
No, I haven't seen that movie in ages.
Go back and watch it. Yeah, it's Pee Wee Herman.
Huh. I'm gonna have to. Okay. We've gone through some nonsense. Alex is basically having to hide out. There is a meeting on the beach with Clea where they sort of talk about the design a bit more, and they would have made out if they'd gone with a deleted version of the scene. But they're still sort of they're getting a lot of tension from trying to work out what the plan is, and they're in Carter's car, and I quite like his response to it. Like he freaks out. He's like, the whole tension of who's next. Like, did that work for you? Trying to work out who's next?
Well, my issue. Everyone would have just died at the same time in an explosion.
I mean, it is the perfect time to just nuke them.
Yeah. It's like, fine. So there's supposed to be an order, and he's worked it out. Would Death have been thinking that closely when he's making a plane explode? I have no idea. I'm being told by the film he does. Fine, we'll go with that. So okay, we're going with that. And he's like, so he's worked out Carter's next, and at that point he's like, oh well, I'm going to do it on my own terms. And it's like, how do you know Death doesn't want you to do it on your own terms? I'm kind of with him though. If Death's coming after you next anyway, just kill yourself. In Minecraft.
Carter wasn't actually next, but he doesn't say it. But I like it. They go on a crazy joyride and
So-
end up
Yeah, that
on the
winds me up.
tracks.
Why? Because he's saying like, oh, tell us, oh, and then Alex is like, why does it matter? It matters quite a lot because that person can prepare.
So hang on. You can't keep that from someone.
Yeah, like,
Yeah.
come on, mate. You're already running around trying to, blast out these theories, and you're trying to make it, trying to state your case. Just say.
I feel like when he works out that there is a design as well, he goes mentally. He's like, "Oh my god, I can work it out." He's really excited. Like, if he's in that mood, he'd want to tell who's next as well.
Yeah.
People just change their decisions like that for no reason in this film all the time. Like when because right, this scene now where they end up on the train lines, he's like, for ages he's like, "Oh, it's my time to die," and then as the trains are like nearly gonna kill him, he's like, "No, I don't want it anymore." It's like, I guess when death's coming at you in the face, you would change your mind on that. But as we said before, we had Clear as well, just saying, "I don't believe you now."
Hold on, I'm gonna defend him on that. I get Carter's closeted motivation here. He's a rebel.
gay.
He's defiant. He hates the idea that he's not on top or a top, and he's trying to take control. That's why he does a crazy joyriding. He's saying, "I'm not going to be the mouse here in the game." So he tries to take it back in his hand. He puts himself in a dangerous situation on the track, and then the train's coming. He's like, it's a pretty tough situation, but you know what? Now, no, I'm going to change my mind. It's not going to be now. I'm going to take back control. And then he realizes he can't. So, like, I get his motivation in this, and like the reality then hits him, and I think that's actually, I think he sells there quite well.
Yeah, I mean that's it's certainly the most justified changing of your mind in the film, I'd say. But yeah, and then he can't get out because like the belt's stuck or whatever, and then Alex goes in to try and save him. I could see the belt breaking. It's like, I don't know. I remember there was like a bit where he like looked at his own belt and it was
That's
fine.
what he's referring. Yeah, that's what he's referring. Because he looks down, he sees the belt's broken, sort of looks around, looks back down, and then it's secure again. So that's what he's referring to when he says, "I saw the belt broken," but it wasn't Carter's belt; it was his own.
Yeah, well, that's what confused me as well.
Yeah,
because it's like that was your own one.
But then I think because of his clairvoyancy, like, and the fact that he sort of sussed out who was next in line, he could then apply that logic and go, right, okay, belt, okay, he's going to get stuck. We need to,
I just thought it was dumb. But then he saves him.
I just think it's dumb that the fact that he doesn't say who's next. It really irks me.
As well,
that for me was like, look, you want these people to be prepared.
Yeah.
And to be like, it's not important, or why does it matter? It's like, dude, you know exactly why it matters. You're the one who's just worked it all out.
So I have a rewrite of this scene, and it's a small rewrite, but I think it would help.
Right.
So I find it very tense when Alex manages to pull Carter out the car last minute, and then you get this sudden switch to Billy being decapitated by a sharp piece of metal that gets hit and flies out, right?
Yeah.
But I didn't like that. I felt that was cheap because the metal just comes out of nowhere, right?
Yeah.
I think the idea is that it comes off the car, I think, but I didn't like that one.
It's just suddenly introduced it. For one, the editing of Carter being pulled out of the car is quite bad. It really just looks like they've cut away to them being safe quite unjustifiably. So that's a small complaint. But my other one is like, I would rewrite this a bit. The problem is Carter is stuck. He can't get his seatbelt undone, right?
Yeah.
Alex helps him. Alex should see this sharp bit of metal, pick it up off the tracks, and then grab it and use that to cut the belt and then throw it down.
Okay, that would work. But
there you go.
No, because the metal comes off the car after the train smashed into it. So it wouldn't be there, but I mean, he's written one in.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't get that it was off the car. I thought it was just a random bit of sharp metal, to be honest. And I think if that's going to introduce a kill, I think you can make it a lot more impactful and also get that idea that you're trying to cheat death, but you are going to add complications in. So I would have just liked to see that introduced a bit more artfully, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, you got to have a reason for the metal being there, though. Otherwise, I'd be here saying like, "Well, why is a random bit of sharp metal on the floor?" That's really lucky. That's...
Oh no, man! That's why you don't play around the train tracks. There's all sorts. I'll also. Did you notice a nice little bit of detail that Carter has soiled himself?
Yeah.
Oh right, I didn't notice that. No, but I mean, it makes sense.
The film is taking itself very seriously, and I thought it was a nice touch that he was that scared that he completely wet himself. You know.
Yeah, and then they decapitate someone with a random bit of metal 5 seconds later.
Yes.
Tones all over the place.
It's a good decapitation, though, isn't it?
It's a good. It's good.
I enjoyed the effect.
I just felt sad that he didn't get a death worthy of final FD status. For me, like I say, it was too abrupt.
Well, it's the bus one as well. It's just
The
why do you
bus
have these
one-
really elaborate
The bus
ones?
is iconic.
Well, the bus is iconic, and it also makes sense because there's the build up before that, because he sees the bus go past in the reflection, so you the member know that that's going to happen. But with this particular scene, there's no. I mean, there's a bit where it sort of pans to it when it's sort of shaking about, but I mean.
Well, what got me specifically with the bus one was, the only kind of tell was that he saw a bus in the window, but there wasn't a bus on the street.
Yeah.
So you're like, right, that's odd. But then she just gets hit out of nowhere. They don't even hear it coming. But every other death has a kind of, it shows you the setup for it. So with this metal one, you see the metal like next to the track shaking about a bit, and that the wheels are kind of hitting it. Like that's so much more than you got with the bus. Like it's not even like you kind of can see a bus right in the background speeding along or something. And it's like, it's iconic. I don't really get why it's iconic for Final Destination, because like there's been loads of bus deaths in other films.
It's not. Yeah, I'll say it's not just Final Destination. It's the Scary Movie franchise. It's I say go back to it. Mean Girls even used it.
Yeah.
Bride of Chucky as well.
Bride of Chucky, yeah.
Right. Okay, I get what you. Right, it's
this kicked it off.
This
kicked it off. You know.
Yeah, but it felt really weird as a Final Destination, because I didn't know that was referencing Final Destination. I didn't expect it to be a Final Destination death, so it surprised me. But I wasn't scared. I laughed actually, because she just turned into a red mist. Yeah, that's not how getting hit by a bus works. But
it is something that they that style of death, they did perfect it later. They worked on it as a first draft. I quite like it. As you say, though, it is not a standard Final Destination death. It's not what the series would become known for. So it's quite interesting. Like, this is the first one. Like Friday the 13th, the series refines itself over time, or Flanderizes itself. If you're not a fan,
if anything, I think that bus scene it essentially becomes appropriated by your Scary Movie films, and it's more known in that franchise, I suppose, than it is here, because admittedly when I went to watch this movie again, I'd actually forgotten about that particular death. I remember all the other ones, but I forgot about that one, and then the first thing that came to my mind was, Scary Movie.
Nice. So we have this death. We have a rather interesting decapitation. I, for one, really appreciate a decapitation that is not at the neck. It's nice variety that it took someone out in the middle of the head. I like that. But that really sends us. Oh dear. And that sort of sets us up into our finale. It is dealt with very quickly. It's a little sloppily done, if we're honest. So like that's done. We're going to move into our fourth act, maybe third. I don't know how you'd want to draw it, but and that's a brief respite where Alex, still on the run by the FBI, who were useless, is going Ted Kaczynski mode, isolated in a cabin. But as
Yeah, he's
And
going
as
mad
many
as well.
people will know, like escaping into a cabin in the country does not protect you from the FBI. So
Fuck
you
the
then
ATF. Thank you for letting me
and the
sneak that in.
ATF as well. Yes. All right. Enough Ruby Ridge posting. So we then get the realization that it's now Clear's turn at risk. And here is where, like, we're just skipping over the idiocy of the FBI because we've already established that the FBI subplot does not work in this at all. We get onto Clear, and this is where I think we can really, I like this film. This is messy as heck.
Yeah.
Haryan, were you by any chance going to complain that in this finale, where the big focus is on a really elaborate, dramatic setup to kill Clear, that basically Death could have taken her out about 3 or 4 times and just didn't?
Yeah, I mean, Death was clearly just had a tentacle wire completely under his control, and he's like, oh no, she needs to get in the car though. That's my design. Oh, gee, what is wrong with you, Death? Just
It bugged me too. It bugged me too. I don't think the finale works here.
And then and there's the bit where it like latches itself onto, I don't know, some sort of wire connected to the house, and it just overloads everything in the house. And I'm like, what's going on?
It's the finale. It's got to be big action for our big finale.
It's so retarded.
Yes. Yeah. This on my rewatch, I saw originally when I see it, I was totally taken in by this. I absolutely loved it, and I still have a good time. But as an adult, being on a few viewings, you can sort of take it apart now and sort of see story flaws in this that really should have been ironed out, and you can still have your big dramatic finale.
I think with this bit, this is probably where having like a non-entity trying to kill the protagonists probably falls flat in terms of the build-up of this particular scene.
It becomes extremely arbitrary.
Yeah.
Why does the wire not? Why does the electric line not immediately grab her? Why does that pole not spear her?
Well, especially after every other death has been basically instant. Because the first one he slips and is already getting choked. Second one, she gets taken the F out by a bus. Third, she gets stabbed in the neck by a piece of glass that flies out the monitor. And then for some reason the rest of that scene happens.
I'm disappointed at you failing to refer to it as a double-decker girlfriend wrecker.
Bruh.
Missed opportunity.
A single-decker bus.
Oh.
So the joke wouldn't have landed. Come on. We're trying to make things make sense.
It gave her a farewell. I don't know.
Yeah, but then you had, the metal going through the guy's head. They're all pretty instant deaths, really. And then this one's like, yeah, I'm not even going to touch her. And she goes out for a dog knowing that she's going to die as well, which, I mean, dog people might get that.
You got to save the dog, man. You got to save that dog.
Yeah. It wasn't even like it was a cute... I mean, I like German Shepherds, don't get me wrong, but it's not even like it was like a cute, harmless dog. German Shepherds are used by police, for God's sake. Yeah, and I don't know. I felt if the dog was in danger, it wouldn't have been barking at the flashing wire, but I don't know. The whole scene was dreadful.
Yeah, I think unfortunately it exposes the arbitrary nature of the threat. That because it's not an individual, it's not a monster, it's not a masked killer that you can track, and you know where they're meant to be, you know how fast they're moving. This is why when Friday the 13th just has Jason teleporting around, we can call that out. This is an arbitrary force, and it could have taken her about 4 times. Yeah. It didn't. And so at that point, it is a bit of a tension killer. So I've got to say this is a flawed finale.
Yeah, this bit definitely took me out of it.
And you had science issues with the solution to her being trapped in the car with the wire, which I know. If
well,
you want to do
may-
that in just a couple of minutes, you're very welcome to.
Well, it's not that she they weren't wrong that she wouldn't get electrocuted if she stayed in the car. It was more that he said, "Oh, you're grounded by the tires," which that's not the reason. It's just the fact it's a Faraday cage, so the electricity is going through the metal of the car exterior, so it doesn't get to the interior, and can't jump to her. And it's true, if she touches like the side of the car, or whatever, she would get electrocuted. But yeah, and so that was the only issue there, really. But yeah, she was stuck in it, and I'm like, right, that's fine. How you got to this point is like, she's pressing the thing, the garage door isn't open. It's like, okay, just ram it. She actually does, and then that makes it worse. I'm like, okay. Like, Death's going very elaborate here for absolutely no reason. Like, you can chop people's heads off and turn others into red mist by buses. Why are you doing this now? It's like it's so
Because
stupid.
it's the finale. So yes, that is unfortunate. Things are happening because it's a finale, not because of thing. But we get a contrivance. We get him working out that if he saves her, they can get to the end of the cycle. And I think the assumption at that point is, well, we've been through the cycle. Death has attempted to kill each of us in order, and with that done, it's over, guys. It's over.
Yeah.
But they give you a death fake out, as you mentioned.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, with Alex.
Apparently, the FBI is done with its murder investigation that quickly.
Yeah, 6 months later, plane exploding, like multiple murders / suicides / deaths. Oh no, they could go to Paris. They can leave the country. Oh dear. And then, man, we get to that final scene.
This is some slightly lazy writing. Let's be honest. They needed another pass at that.
Throughout the film, to be
I
fair.
think I'm going to have to change this avatar, guys. I find it very disturbing.
Are you trying to say that your face is disturbing? That's really, you shouldn't think that about yourself. You're very, come on now.
There's a well-known fact.
Would you say it's horrifying?
Come on now.
Absolutely. So I took the shot because, one, I really love Alex's expression, like, no, let me tell you exactly. Like he looks like he's explaining his most autistic conspiracy theory. Like he's just taking how through which particular regimes IG Farben funded in the early 20th century, and she's just like, I don't want to hear it. I know. I've read Anthony Sutton,
and you see clear. It's right here at this lake where the water turns the frogs gay.
I'd love it. She's heard it all before, but she hasn't learned. Yeah,
I love that his name's Alex as well.
Why did she dye why did she change her hairstyle as well?
Why not? She cheered up. She was all emo before, wasn't she?
I have a theory about that. I think this is a reshoot. I have no evidence for this at all, except the fact that the tone is vastly different and it's like a big move away from anywhere that they were filming. And it's almost like I kind of get the vibe that a director said, the studio said, you've got to do us a different ending. And fine. So they get the smallest number of actors they can back and just shoot them in a fairly nondescript place. And by this point, Ali Larter, who plays Clear Rivers, has already dyed her hair back. Empire, thank you for leaving the rating. I think that's very fair. That's a very fair rating.
That is far, far too generous.
Thanks for dropping by, man.
Yeah,
always
man.
good seeing you.
Yeah.
Good lad. All right. So yeah, I just love this frame. Anyway, I think that's why she's got different coloured hair. I also think we get some, I don't know, a lack of subtlety and almost spoon feeding the audience a little bit. So like little things in this end scene, you do a close up on the musician as he starts playing John Denver. Like, guys, look at it, guys. Did you notice, guys? Whereas I think you should be more confident as a director and just have it start up in the background and go for a while, and then do your close up. give people a chance to notice before you point them at it and say, come on. Yeah, this is what you need to notice, right?
Oh, definitely, yeah. Because I think by this time you've established the rules, and so you should be able to pick up the signs yourself.
Yeah, well, this is what you do at the start of a kind of badly written film where he sees things like that. Whereas this is at the end of a film after you already know all this. So yeah, like right at the end as well. We're talking like the last 2 minutes.
It is. It's also, I think, a slightly. I'm sounding like I'm slating the movie when I do really enjoy it, but I've got to say, like, the writing in this is almost like it's a quite forced attempt to get a twist ending. Like, we've established the rules, but what if last minute the rules are different? And it's like, all this stuff's going down. Let's just keep talking about what the rules might be. And it feels very artificial. Like, it's what you would say in a more like theoretical, abstract discussion, not in the immediacy of, everything going to hell around you, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Yeah,
I mean,
I didn't like it. Yeah. And as you say, he just gets out of thing. It's like, wait, what if we change seats? It's like, how can you know that wasn't part? You don't know what's part of Death's design at all. You don't even know if like you were meant to see this. We don't know why you saw it. It's like, after 6 months, like, why the 6 month gap when nothing has happened to any of you?
180 days.
Yeah. After it took 39. Oh, was it?
There it is, 180 days.
Oh, I'd love it if that's it. Good catch.
No.
I also didn't like his, I'm just going to go back to the hotel. Why?
Why not?
Yeah, why is he going back to the hotel? Like, oh, no, don't come with me. What? He's just acting weird for the sake of acting weird.
Bad dialogue, bad delivery of information aside, it's a pretty cool way to end the film. Even if I would change literally everything they say in this scene.
Well, yeah, because it's like she shouts at him to stop and getting run over by the bus, but then the bus has another thing that, like, that. Oh no, wasn't that he's going to get run over? It's that, then this big massive sign comes to swing him, and then he gets saved by Carter. And it's like, oh my god, you cheated Death. I did, but who's next? And then it comes swinging back after 10 seconds, which pendulum would be a lot quicker.
And also, please tell me you guys noticed that it as it swung back round, it switched round to show 180.
Yes, absolutely. Oh, again, did you not?
This is 180 is a reoccurring thing in this series. That's why I'm utterly convinced the reason why it was 6 months is because it's 180 days. I'm not even looking at trivia. I'm utterly convinced that will be the reason why.
I love it. I love that theory. I mean, we're probably at the rounding off point. Like, also, most of the other films in this series never find a better way to end than this. It's a sort of like slap you with a closer that's high energy. Like, I love it. Final Destination, if we're in sort of closing thoughts territory, I think we probably are, right? If we're going to meet our 2.5 hours.
Yeah, I think we've pretty much covered everything that needs to be covered.
Okay, folks, start getting your scores in. We've got an 8 out of 12, 8 out of 12 burgers for delivery, but 12 out of 12 premise. I think that's very fair. That is very fair. So get your ratings in the chat. Do specify cheese or not. For me, I would say, like, this film is a weird paradox in that there is so much kind of cool attention to detail in, like, all the placings of 180 and the foreshadowing, details like Carter soiling himself, things like Todd's name is spelt unusually. Instead of Todd with 2 Ds, it's 1 D, like the German Tod for death, or the names being references to horror icons. this is all really good stuff. It's really lovely attention to detail, and the ingenious thing of setting up these deaths with like mouse trap style Rube Goldberg mechanisms. That's amazing. But then it comes to sort of wider issues like the entire FBI plot and this dialogue at the end, and it kind of drops the ball, is the polite way of saying it.
Well, this is my I always say, kind of, you can talk about your cherries on top and your frosting of the cake and all that, but ultimately the main body of your cake has to be edible.
Yes.
Wasn't at all in this film.
It is
So do you want my score?
Yeah, I do. I think it's fair to say I want to think of it as like a really promising beta version. It is a very strong premise that has so many issues to iron out still for it to be perfect.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But I have fun with it. Yeah, I definitely using Poe's scale, I definitely recommend it to people. But it's probably about a 7 for me, 7 or an 8, because I do have fun with it.
Mm-hmm.
Bit of cheese because it's a guilty pleasure.
Yeah, so I'm going to give it a 4 out of 12. My recommendation would just be look up for the death clips on YouTube. They're basically the only good bits. And even in this film, I only really enjoyed 2 of them, which was Todd's death and the teacher's death. The rest of them are either just like really quick and out of nowhere, which isn't kind of the quote unquote the spirit of Final Destination, and its tone was just way too serious. So I'm not giving it a cheese because it wasn't a cheesy film. I mean, I wouldn't say I didn't enjoy it. I enjoyed the film. I enjoyed watching it, but in terms of like competency of like script writing and things like that, wasn't there. And then, as you say, you've got a load of neat picks, half of which I don't care about because I don't know horror directors and things like that. And I didn't even notice half of them. But when you show me all the foreshadowing of how they die with the bus in front of the Terry and things like that, I was like, oh, that's neat. I missed that, but doesn't really give it an extra point in my eyes.
Okay.
Yeah. As I say, I enjoyed it, but as you know, I kind of my ratings more come from a how well is it written point of view. Wasn't very well written, so yeah, not a lot of points.
I got to go with you with that one. That crime guy.
Well, thank you very much, Minnie Mauler, for that one.
You're welcome.
So, yeah, I mean, it's going to lose a lot of points on the writing and certain aspects of that. But mate, I mean, this was one of the films of my generation growing up, and so I will always carry with it a sense of nostalgia and fondness. Watching it again, the faults of the film are more apparent in terms of things like the scripting, the dialogue, the acting, the inconsistencies, that sort of stuff. And I think partly they went wrong in those areas because they focus so much on trying to get the lore built within finding the Easter eggs and finding the little tidbits that are going to help you try and like figure out what's going to happen next. And like you say, fitting the 180s in and making that, quite a heavy feature in there, sort of distracted from other areas where it could have just been tidied up. But like I said earlier in the stream, this film for me was a beta. It was pushed out to the public, feedback was given, and then it was and then the full I'd say from FD2 onwards, that was when the franchise became its own. But in terms of my score, solid 7. I say it loses a lot of marks because of the dialogue, but for me it's a dated film. So, it's a time period where I grew up in as a teenager, and so a lot of it's very relatable, I suppose, in that time, and I enjoyed it, and I still do enjoy it, and I would recommend this to anyone looking to get into horror. I'd actually add some ketchup as well, quite a lot of ketchup. About as much ketchup as there was blood in the bus scene.
Yeah, that's
So there's my
fair.
rating.
That's fair. Impressive gore for a 15, I'd say, but especially in 2000.
Yeah.
All right.
And it was a 15 as well. Like this wasn't a full-on 18 film. It couldn't. It had to hold back in some areas, and it did let loose.
Yeah, loads of swearing, massive creative violence. No bubbins, but you'd probably get into the 18s if you did too much of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I think looking at it as a sort of prototype, a messy but glorious prototype is the way to go. I thought coming into this I'd be rating it a fair bit higher, but I think this is kind of balanced.
Yeah.
As for future,
I mean, Haryan's just wrong.
Haryan, this is why we have you on. I love it. Even if I can never predict what you're going to go for, I should start actually writing my prediction for your score in advance.
That might be good.
I think I'm going to do that for the next one.
Well,
okay.
What did you? Well, if you were to guess with Final Destination, what would you have said before?
I thought you'd quite like it and probably hit it up with about a 9.
I do like it. It's just not well written at all. Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, as I say, this isn't what I'd show someone as an introduction to horror.
No.
As I say, the main reason to watch these films are the death scenes, and this film is definitely just watch the death scenes.
Yeah, it's gosh, I forgot what I was going to say there. Sorry about that.
It's all right.
In terms of the rest of the show series, I mean, I won't go into it too much now. I would be interested to cover 2 as an improved one, maybe like an episode with 2 and 3. For me, 3 is where it really goes wrong. 4 I really hated, and then weirdly 5 is actually complete glory and possibly the best in the series. But maybe that's for another show. So I won't go into it too much because we are trying to keep to our limit. We have a strict policy for this week. I'm going to show it again just because I'm really proud of this sheet.
We're going to get spanked.
It's unacceptable.
You didn't see the other versions I had.
Nub.
Ooh, there were. Let's just say this was a mild choice to show us being slightly. I'm not going to complete that sentence. I will instead move swiftly on to rewarding patient and loyal viewers of the stream and also the catch up with the news of the next week's stream, the horror homework. I'm really excited about this one, and I'm going to follow the suggestion here. I'm going to try and predict Haryan's score because I am so hyped about this. So I'm probably going to get it completely wrong. But we are going to show one of my absolute favorites. This is a top 10 horror for me. Probably a top 5. The more I've watched it recently, the more I've liked it. We're going to cover Fright Night.
Oh,
nice.
Tom Holland's Fright Night.
Oh,
and we will be, well, not the scrumptious twink, the director who actually had a birthday yesterday.
Oh, nice.
Yes, not the strapping verse who stars in the Marvel films, but a more refined character. And we actually will be joined by Charity Rivers, who is in the chat. Charity was on for Ready or Not stream, a fantastic suggestion. I thought some really good contributions, and so I'm really interested in what our Zoomers take from it. Desiccated Limbs asking the important question. Absolutely, we are doing the original Fright Night, 1985. And before that, the topic is going to be something I've been doing a lot of research on. I think I'm going to have to break it down because this is actually a huge topic. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the fun and very America-only world of horror hosts.
Oh,
because that is an absolute mystery to us Brits, but I'm a bit fascinated by them. Watch before next week's show, watch Fright Night 1985. Bear in mind Stranger Things. If you want bonus points, maybe watch the sequel, Fright Night 2. I haven't, so I probably won't have much to say, but I might try and watch it. And I'll probably leave it at that. Just try watching Fright Night, and maybe bear in mind Stranger Things and the recent Fear Streets as well, if you have time to watch them. But the main thing is just the movie. Yeah, Fez, it's 1985. I am going to watch the remake to have some thoughts on it. So that is your horror homework announcement. I of course put them out on Twitter. You can follow me on Twitter if I still have it. You can follow me on Twitter there at Proper Horrors, or you can find me on Minds. Minds is a lovely, far less fraught place. And with that, I think I'm just going to thank my co-hosts, thank everyone who watched live, everyone who's watched on catch up, and so rounding off, that crime guy, thank you very much. And anything to shill, sir?
Well, I did a bit of an impromptu stream last night where I played Jurassic Park, which I consider a crime against nature. So if you want to check that out, then just hit the link in the description in Proper Horror Show's description feed. I'm going to be working a case. I'm probably going to try and get the recording done tomorrow. So I'm hoping, fingers crossed, to get it out this week. It's just been so busy in my real life. I was actually looking back, and it's been 4 weeks since I last really did an actual scripted case. So I'm really sorry for that. It's madness. But, there's a few fun live streams in there with myself and Haryan as well. There is the Salem Witch Trials. There's a bit of laughing at the Florida Man. And there was also a really good live stream that I did recently with Haryan and a gentleman called Rubber, where we talked about the Zodiac Killer and went over some of the more recent developments there. But so yeah, go check it out. It's I'm having a lot of fun. We just broke 2,100 subscribers, and it's been amazing. I didn't expect to be where I am now, let alone, I was sort of picturing myself having at least 1,000 by the end of the year, and even that was, for me, the expectation was unrealistic. So to be there now is, or double that, is fantastic. And it's you guys, it's Proper Horror Show, Haryan, everyone sort of played their part in helping me get there. So thank you very much. And now I'm done giving like a massive speech like I've won an award. I'll hand over to Haryan, but subscribe to that crime guy for your true crime content now.
Absolutely.
Yeah, to be,
and watch
to be
this
fair,
space. I might have just scored another collab.
Oh, nice. Yeah, to be fair, I remember getting over 1,000, and it's a pretty exciting time, to be honest. So I can understand where the speech comes from, but for my waning channel, I have made 2 videos this week. One yesterday where people are calling me blue pilled because I explained what the government's position on the vaccinations and herd immunity was, and thought I agreed with it. But no, I was just going through how, despite the fact that it should have been Freedom Day a month ago at this point, but now it's coming to next week, they're still going to make sure that we have COVID passports, and that we're still, today, I didn't go through it in the video, but today they also voted on forcing care home workers and people going into care homes to be vaccinated. So that's not good. But then today I also made a video on the whole thing going around on the England football team, and how everyone is so pathologically anti-racist that now we can have no anonymity online because like 3 people said racial insults to 3 footballers who missed penalties and are being lauded as heroes for it. It was crazy, and that's coming from GB News as well, where one of the presenters kneeled, and he's like, he said amen at the end of his speech as well. It was crazy. Give it a look. Go on.
So sorry to interrupt. I'll just say, talking about the whole racial stuff going on. Do you know what? I didn't even. The thought of that didn't even cross my mind on Sunday night. Didn't even cross my mind. It wasn't until the media came out telling me that I should be angry about it. Because it happened to be 3 black guys who missed the penalties, and I was like, oh yeah, that doesn't change anything. Do you know what I mean? Like, but yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, people who do that sort of stuff to those guys, I mean, wholly undeserved. But I mean, you know, the vast majority of us, you know, I mean, I looked at Saka's face after the shootout ended, man, and I mean,
poor guy.
you could, man, my
He's
heart
18.
went out to him.
I couldn't believe he's. Oh, is he 19?
19, but he'd never taken a penalty, and there he was. You know, you had players like Grealish, and I'm gonna get too deep into it, but put it this way, there were other players there who should have stepped up.
Yeah.
So for him to do that, you know, so for him to take what was perhaps the most important penalty that he's probably ever going to take, that takes balls. Hat goes off, you know, my hat. I take my hat off to him.
Sure. Yeah, and also I have started the script on my Soma video. I really want to try and get it out by September.
Yes.
Yay.
When
are you going to finish?
Yeah. I've already finished Soma. No, I have. Like 3 weeks after I finished it, you put a comment saying, "How did I miss this?" It's like, I told you I was streaming that week.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh, Bella.
All right, guys. Super nanny.
Yeah.
Look at her piercing stare. You have angered her.
Oh no! Oh, what are you gonna do to me, Super Nanny? Ooh.
My Google image search is very cursed because of trying to find the right image. But anyway, okay. So I'm gonna round it off here again. I'll reiterate my thanks. If you're here, if you're just a horror person and not sort of from our weird little economics offshoot, check out That Crime Guy and Haryan for some interesting commentary. And I guess I'm going to leave it there. I have been working on a bunch of other stuff, a short video on my thoughts on The Father. I'm hoping to get that out this week. And I got some interesting equipment to help me do a sort of more an interesting effect that I've got planned for a video. So you will hopefully see that very soon as well. But we have overshot 2.5 hours, but we are not at 3 hours 50 as we have been recently. So I'm pretty impressed with us. Same. It's the right direction. We're going in the right direction. Yeah. You know what? This is 2.5 hours with injury time. How about that? Yes. Nice. Oh, we're moving on to penalties. Before that happens, I'm going to sign off. Thanks again to That Crime Guy and Haryan and everyone who's watched. And look forward to Fright Night next week. Thanks, y'all.